Rain hammered the glass like bullets against steel. Sheila Vaughn stood frozen in the doorway of the most dangerous office in Manhattan, staring at the man who'd just bought her life. Dante Moretti, the Reaper, they called him, sat behind black marble with eyes like winter death. And he'd given her 48 hours to find $10 million or become his wife. Her father's gambling debts, her name on the contract, her body as collateral. This is the story of a woman who walked into hell wearing a wedding dress and came out wearing a crown. If you're watching from London, Lagos, or Los Angeles, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and stay until the end, because what happens next will shatter everything you think you know about power, love, and survival.
The
phone call came on a Tuesday. Sheila was halfway through her constitutional law seminar at Columbia when her cell vibrated against the wooden desk. She ignored it. Professor Chen was dissecting Miranda versus Arizona with the precision of a surgeon, and Sheila needed every detail carved into her memory if she wanted to pass the bar exam in 6 weeks. The phone buzzed again. Then again. The girl beside her shot her an irritated glance. Sheila grabbed the phone and slipped out of the lecture hall into the corridor where fluorescent lights hummed overhead like dying insects. 17 missed calls, all from the same blocked number. Her stomach dropped. She pressed the phone to her ear. Hello? Sheila Vaughn? The voice was male, calm, professional, wrong in a way she couldn't name. Who is this? You need to come to 1275 Park Avenue, penthouse level, tonight. I don't. Your father used your name as collateral on a $10 million loan. The debt is now due. You have 48 hours. The line went dead. Sheila stood in that hallway with students rushing past her like water around a stone. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her father, Robert Vaughn, the man who'd abandoned her and her younger brother 8 years ago to chase poker tables and prescription pills across 3 states, had destroyed her life one final time. She called him. Voicemail. She called again. Nothing. Sheila pressed her forehead against the cool tile wall and tried to stop shaking. $10 million. She had $473 in her checking account and student loans that would take 20 years to repay. Her part-time job at the legal clinic paid barely enough to cover rent on the shoebox apartment in Washington Heights she shared with 2 other girls. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But 3 hours later, Sheila stood outside the most expensive building she'd ever seen. Rain soaking through her coat while a doorman in a suit that cost more than her education stared down at her like she was garbage blown in from the street. I'm here to see a... She didn't even know who. Penthouse level. The doorman's expression didn't change. He lifted a phone, murmured something, then stepped aside and gestured toward the elevator. Sheila's legs barely carried her inside. The elevator was all mirrors and gold trim. She watched her reflection rise, wet hair plastered to her skull, mascara smudged beneath red-rimmed eyes, Columbia hoodie clinging to her thin frame. She looked exactly like what she was, a 26-year-old law student about to drown. The doors opened. The penthouse stretched before her like something from a nightmare dressed as a dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan, rain streaking down the glass in silver rivers, black leather furniture. Modern art that probably cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. And behind a massive black marble desk sat a man who made every instinct in Sheila's body scream run. Dante Moretti. She'd seen his face in newspaper articles about organized crime, in federal case files she'd studied for class, in whispered conversations between prosecutors who spoke his name like a curse. The Reaper. Head of the Moretti Syndicate. 42 years old and responsible for more violence than the NYPD could prove, but everyone knew existed. He was terrifying, not because of his size, though he was tall, broad-shouldered, built like violence wrapped in a tailored charcoal suit, not because of the tattoos she could see creeping up his neck from beneath his collar, dark ink against olive skin, not even because of the cold gray eyes currently dissecting her like she was evidence at a crime scene. It was the stillness. Dante Moretti sat behind that desk without moving, without blinking, radiating the kind of control that came from knowing he could destroy anything in this room, including her, without raising his voice. Sheila Vaughn. He didn't ask. He stated it like a fact already confirmed. She forced herself to step forward. Water dripped from her coat onto marble floors that probably cost more per square foot than her entire life. You called me. Sit. It wasn't a request. Sheila lowered herself into the chair across from him, spine rigid, hands clenched in her lap to stop them shaking. Dante slid a folder across the desk. She opened it with numb fingers. Documents. Financial records. Loan agreements stamped and notarized. And there, on page 7, was her signature. Her name. Sheila Marie Vaughn, guaranteeing repayment of $10 million to Moretti Holdings, LLC. That's not my signature, she whispered. It's close enough. Dante's voice was like gravel wrapped in silk. Your father is talented with forgery when properly motivated. I never signed this. I never agreed to anything. The courts won't care. Sheila's throat closed. He was right. She'd studied contract law. She knew how hard it was to prove forgery after the fact, especially when the signature was good. And the debt holder had lawyers who could bury her in motions until she ran out of money for her own defense. I don't have $10 million, she said. I know. I don't have $10,000. I know that too. Then why am I here? Dante leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled beneath his chin. You're here because I'm giving you options. Options. You have 48 hours to repay the debt in full. He paused. Or you marry me. The words hit her like a fist to the chest. Sheila stared at him. Rain hammered against the windows. Somewhere far below, the city moved, taxis honking, people laughing, lives continuing like the world wasn't ending. You're insane, she breathed. I'm practical. Dante's expression didn't change. Your father borrowed money he couldn't repay. The debt transfers to you as guarantor. I could take everything you own, destroy your credit, bury you in legal fees until you're 50. Or you could marry me, and the debt disappears. Why? The question ripped out of her. Why would you want to marry me? You don't even know me. Something flickered in those gray eyes, there and gone too fast to identify. I have my reasons. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Sheila shot to her feet. The chair scraped against marble. Go to hell. She turned toward the elevator. Sit down, Sheila. She didn't. I said sit down. The command in his voice froze her mid-step. Not because she wanted to obey, because something in his tone promised consequences she didn't want to discover. Slowly, she turned back. Dante was standing now. He moved around the desk with the fluid grace of a predator, and Sheila had to fight every instinct not to back away as he approached. He stopped 3 feet from her, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne and something darker underneath, close enough to see the scar cutting through his left eyebrow, close enough that when he spoke she felt the words like a physical touch. You think you can walk out of here, Dante said quietly. You think you can go back to your apartment, finish law school, pretend this conversation never happened. Yes? No. He pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped the screen. A photo appeared. Sheila's heart stopped. Her brother. 15-year-old Marcus standing outside his high school in Queens, backpack slung over one shoulder, laughing at something on his phone. The photo was crisp, recent, taken from across the street by someone Marcus never noticed. You son of a... Dante swiped to the next photo. Her mentor from the legal clinic, Professor Sarah Chen, walking to her car. Swipe. Her roommate leaving their apartment building. Swipe. The coffee shop owner where Sheila worked weekends. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Every person she cared about. Every connection that mattered. All of them photographed without their knowledge. Cataloged. Targeted. I don't make threats, Dante said. I make promises. You can refuse me. You can walk away. But everyone in these photos will pay the price. Your brother's scholarship disappears. Your mentor's career ends. The people who depend on you suffer. Sheila couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The room tilted sideways. Or, Dante continued, sliding the phone back into his pocket, you marry me. Your brother stays safe. Your mentor keeps her job. The debt vanishes. You finish law school. All you have to do is wear my ring and play the role in public. You're asking me to sell myself. I'm asking you to be smart. This is slavery. This is business. Dante's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires and the collections begin. Sheila wanted to scream, wanted to hit him, wanted to run until her legs gave out. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "If I agree, what exactly do you want from me? You'll live in my home. You'll attend events with me. You'll present as my wife to the outside world. And privately? Privately, you'll have your own space, your own bedroom. I won't touch you without permission." The clarification should have been reassuring. It wasn't, because it meant Dante Moretti had thought about this, planned it, decided that forcing her into marriage was somehow preferable to simply taking what he wanted. That scared her more than anything else. "I need to think," she said. "You have 48 hours. I need to talk to my brother." "No." Dante's voice cut like a blade. "You tell no one. If you breathe a word of this to anyone, your brother, your roommates, your professors, the deal is off, and the consequences begin immediately." "Then how am I supposed to—" "You're a law student." He moved back toward the desk. "Figure it out." Sheila stood there, shaking with rage and terror, tangled so tight she couldn't separate them. "I hate you. You don't know me well enough to hate me." "I know enough." Dante picked up the folder and held it out. "Take this. Review the terms. My number is inside. Call me when you've made your decision." She didn't want to touch anything he offered, but she took the folder anyway because refusing it changed nothing. At the elevator, Sheila turned back. "Why me? Why not just... why marriage?" For a long moment, Dante said nothing. Then, "Because I can." The elevator doors closed between them. Sheila didn't sleep that night. She sat on her bed with the folder open across her lap, reading the same pages over and over until the words blurred together. The apartment was dark. Her roommates were asleep. Outside, sirens wailed through the streets, like the city itself was screaming. $10 million. She'd checked her father's last known address. Disconnected. His phone number led to a voicemail box that had been full for 6 months. The man was gone. Vanished into whatever hole addicts crawled into when the world finally stopped forgiving them, and he'd left her holding the knife. Sheila pulled out her laptop and started searching. Dante Moretti, born in Sicily, immigrated to New York at 19. Built the Moretti Syndicate from the ground up through a combination of ruthless violence and terrifying intelligence. The FBI had tried to build cases against him for 2 decades. All of them collapsed. Witnesses disappeared. Evidence vanished. Prosecutors suddenly decided to retire. He was untouchable. And he decided to make her his wife. Sheila's hand shook as she scrolled through article after article. Money laundering, racketeering, suspected involvement in 14 unsolved murders. The Reaper of Manhattan, they called him, because people who crossed him didn't just die, they vanished so completely it was like they'd never existed. She was going to marry a monster, or she was going to let everyone she loved pay the price. At 3 a.m, Sheila walked into the bathroom and stared at herself in the mirror, dark circles under bloodshot eyes, hair tangled, face pale as a ghost. 26 years old, 6 weeks from graduating law school, her whole life ahead of her, and it was ending before it even started. She thought about running, taking Marcus and disappearing. Canada, Mexico. Somewhere Dante's reach didn't extend. But she'd studied criminal organizations. She knew how they worked. They had connections everywhere, money that could find anyone. And even if she ran, what kind of life was that? Always looking over her shoulder, always waiting for the day they caught up. No. Running wasn't an option. Fighting wasn't an option. The only choice was surrender. Sheila pulled out her phone with numb fingers and dialed the number from the folder. He answered on the first ring. "I accept," she whispered. Silence. Then Dante's voice, dark and final as a closing door. "I'll send a car tomorrow at noon. Pack what you need. You're moving in." The line went dead. Sheila slid down the bathroom wall until she was sitting on cold tile, phone clutched in her hand, and finally let herself cry. Not because she was sad, because she was terrified. Because she'd just agreed to chain herself to a man who collected debts in blood, and there was no taking it back. Somewhere in the city, rain was still falling, and Sheila Vaughn's old life was drowning. The car that arrived at noon was a black Mercedes with windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Sheila stood on the sidewalk with a single suitcase, staring at her own reflection in the glass. Behind her, the apartment building rose 6 stories, peeling paint, cracked steps, graffiti on the mailboxes. Home for 3 years. She was leaving it forever. The driver got out. Older man, gray suit, face like stone. He took her suitcase without a word and opened the back door. Sheila climbed inside. The interior smelled like leather and money. Dante was waiting. He sat in the far corner, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than her semester's tuition. Those gray eyes tracked her like a predator watching prey settle into the trap. "Seatbelt," he said. Sheila buckled herself in with shaking hands. The car pulled away from the curb, and she watched her old life disappear through the tinted window. The bodega where she bought coffee, the laundromat where she studied between wash cycles, the subway entrance that led to campus. All of it gone. "We need to establish rules," Dante said. Sheila didn't look at him. "I thought you already established all the rules. These are different." He pulled out a document, another contract, because apparently her entire life was now governed by paperwork. "This is the agreement. Read it." She took the papers. It was 6 pages long. Dense legal language that her law school training allowed her to parse even through the fog of terror. The terms were clear. She would live in his home as his wife. She would attend all public events he required. She would not discuss the nature of their arrangement with anyone. She would have her own bedroom and private space. He would not enter her bedroom without permission. He would not touch her without explicit consent. Her brother's education would be funded through graduation. She would continue law school with security assigned for her protection. The marriage would remain in effect for a minimum of 2 years, after which terms could be renegotiated. "This reads like a prison sentence," Sheila said. "It's a contract." "It's the same thing." Dante's jaw tightened. "Sign it or don't. But if you refuse now, we're done. No second chances." Sheila looked down at the blank signature line. Her hand hovered over the paper. Every instinct screamed at her to tear it up, throw it in his face, jump out of this moving car, and run until her lungs gave out. Instead, she clicked the pen and signed her name. The car ride to Dante's estate took 40 minutes. They crossed the bridge into Riverdale, wound through tree-lined streets where houses became mansions, then finally turned onto a private road that ended at gates tall enough to be medieval. The gates opened. Sheila's breath caught. The house? No, the estate, sprawled across what had to be 5 acres overlooking the Hudson River. Stone and glass and modern architecture that somehow looked both ancient and futuristic. Security cameras everywhere. Men in dark suits stationed at intervals like soldiers guarding a fortress. This wasn't a home. It was a compound. The car stopped at the front entrance. Dante got out first, buttoning his suit jacket with movements so precise they looked choreographed. He gestured for her to follow. Sheila stepped onto marble steps that gleamed even in the gray afternoon light. The front door opened before they reached it. A woman stood in the entrance. Late 50s, hair pulled back in a severe bun, expression neutral as Switzerland. "Mr. Moretti, this is Sheila," Dante said. "She'll be living here. Show her to the East Wing." The woman's gaze flicked to Sheila, cataloging everything in half a second. "Of course, follow me, miss." Sheila wanted to say something, wanted to demand answers, explanations, something that made sense of this nightmare. But Dante was already walking away, phone pressed to his ear, voice dropping into rapid Italian that she couldn't understand. She was dismissed. "Miss?" The woman waited. Sheila followed her inside. The interior was even more overwhelming than the penthouse. Soaring ceilings, art on every wall, furniture that looked like it belonged in museums. And everywhere, that sense of controlled power. Nothing was accidental. Every detail chosen, placed, managed. "My name is Elena," the woman said as they climbed a curved staircase. "I manage the household. If you need anything, you ask me." "What exactly does living here mean?" Sheila asked. "It means you follow Mr. Moretti's rules. You don't go anywhere without security. You don't discuss his business. You don't ask questions you don't need answered." They reached the second floor and turned down a hallway lined with closed doors. Elena stopped at the last one and pushed it open. The bedroom was bigger than Sheila's entire apartment. King bed with silk sheets, Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. Private bathroom with marble everything. Walk-in closet already filled with clothes she'd never seen before. Designer labels, perfect sizes, her exact style. He'd prepared for her, planned this down to the last detail. "Dinner is at 7, Elena said. "Mr. Moretti expects you to attend." "And if I don't?" Elena's expression didn't change. "I suggest you don't test him on your first day." She left, closing the door behind her. Sheila stood alone in the most beautiful prison cell she'd ever seen and tried to figure out how to breathe. Shit. Dinner was held in a dining room large enough to seat 20. Only 2 places were set. Dante sat at the head of the table. Sheila took the chair to his right because the staff member who'd come to collect her had guided her there with gentle but firm insistence. The food was Italian, perfectly prepared, expensive wine poured into crystal glasses. Sheila couldn't taste any of it. "You need to eat," Dante said. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway." She picked up her fork and moved food around her plate without actually consuming anything. Across from her, Dante ate with the same controlled precision he applied to everything else. Measured bites, no wasted movement, every action deliberate. "How many people have you killed?" The question came out before she could stop it. Dante set down his wine glass. "Excuse me? You heard me? That's not dinner conversation. We're not having dinner conversation. We're having a hostage eating with her captor." Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. "You're not a hostage." "Then what am I?" "My wife." "We're not married yet." "We will be. Friday, 3 p.m. at the courthouse downtown. Private ceremony. 2 witnesses. Legally binding." 3 days. She had 3 days before this became permanent. "I want to see my brother," Sheila said. "No. You can't keep me from—" "I can do whatever I want." Dante's voice stayed level, calm, terrifying in its certainty. "And what I want is for you to understand how this works. You're not in control anymore. I am. The sooner you accept that, the easier this becomes." Sheila threw her napkin onto the table and stood. "I'm done." She was halfway to the door when his voice stopped her. "Walk out of this room and you'll have security following you everywhere. Sleep well tonight, Sheila. It's the last privacy you'll have for a very long time." She didn't turn around, just kept walking until she reached her bedroom and locked the door behind her. But the next 2 days passed in a blur of suffocating luxury. Sheila tried to attend classes remotely, but concentrating was impossible. Her professors emailed concerned messages. Her roommates texted asking where she'd gone. She couldn't answer honestly, couldn't tell anyone the truth. She was disappearing. On Thursday afternoon, Elena knocked on her door holding a white dress bag. "Your wedding dress," she said simply. Sheila stared at it like it was a snake. "I'm not wearing that. Mr. Moretti insisted you have options." Elena unzipped the bag. 3 dresses, all white, all beautiful, all chosen by a man who'd decided her entire future without asking her opinion. "I don't care what he insisted," Sheila said. Elena's expression softened slightly. "I understand this is difficult, but refusing to choose only means he'll choose for you. Let him." "Is that really how you want to start?" The question hit harder than it should have, because Elena was right. If Sheila refused every single thing, she'd lose what little agency she had left. She'd become nothing but an object moved around Dante's world with no voice, no power, no self. And she'd promised herself, even in this nightmare, she wouldn't disappear. "The middle one," Sheila said quietly. Elena nodded. "Good choice." That night, Sheila stood at her bedroom window, staring out at the river. Moonlight turned the water silver. In the distance, the city glowed like a constellation fallen to earth. Tomorrow she would marry a monster. Tomorrow her name would change. Tomorrow the cage would lock permanently. A knock at the door made her jump. "Come in." Dante stepped inside. He'd never entered her room before. The sight of him crossing the threshold made her pulse spike with something between fear and anger she couldn't name. "We need to talk," he said. "Now you want to talk? I want to make something clear." He stopped a few feet away, close but not threatening. "Tomorrow you become my wife. That means you're under my protection. Anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me. Anyone who disrespects you answers to me. You'll have access to everything I own: money, resources, security, power." "I don't want your power." "Then what do you want?" The question was so absurd she almost laughed. I want my life back. That's not an option. Then we have nothing to talk about. Dante's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might argue. Demand. Command. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket and set it on the dresser. A phone. Your new cell, he said. Encrypted. Untraceable. The only numbers programmed are mine, Elena's, and security. If anything happens, anything at all, you call. Why do you care? Because you're mine now. The possessiveness in his voice made her skin crawl. I'm not a possession. No, Dante said quietly. You're something far more valuable. He left before she could ask what he meant. Sheila stood alone in the dark, staring at the phone like it was evidence of a crime she didn't understand. Tomorrow, everything changed, and she still had no idea why Dante Moretti had chosen her. Friday arrived wrapped in autumn sunshine and bitter cold. Sheila dressed in the white knee-length dress, simple and elegant and nothing like the fairy tale wedding she'd imagined as a girl. Elena did her hair, soft waves, minimal makeup, diamond earrings that probably cost more than a car. She looked beautiful. She felt dead inside. The car ride to the courthouse was silent. Dante sat beside her in a black suit, face unreadable. No conversation, no reassurance, just the weight of inevitability pressing down like gravity. The ceremony took 8 minutes, a judge Dante clearly knew, 2 witnesses Sheila had never met, words spoken in monotone about commitment and legal binding and forever. Dante slid a ring onto her finger, white gold, simple band, no diamond because this wasn't about love. You may kiss the bride. Dante's hand cupped her jaw, his mouth pressed against hers. The kiss was brief, controlled. Nothing like what a real wedding kiss should be. And when he pulled back, Sheila saw something flicker in his eyes. Satisfaction. She was his now. Legally, permanently, irrevocably. The judge signed the papers. The witnesses signed. Dante signed. Sheila signed her new name, Sheila Moretti. Outside the courthouse, photographers were waiting. Sheila froze. What? What's up? Smile, Dante murmured in her ear, his arm wrapped around her waist. This is the performance. Cameras flashed like lightning. Questions shouted from every direction. Who was she? Where did they meet? How long had they been together? Dante handled it like a politician. Smooth answers, charming smile, the perfect image of a powerful man utterly in love with his new bride. Sheila played her part, smiled, waved, let him guide her to the car. As they pulled away, she caught a glimpse of the headlines already forming on phones. Mafia boss Dante Moretti marries mystery woman. She'd become news, a story people would tell without knowing the truth. Back at the estate, Dante led her to his private office, the first time she'd been allowed inside. Dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, massive desk, maps on the walls marked with pins and notes she didn't understand. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed her one. To business arrangements, he said. Sheila didn't drink, just stood there holding crystal while her new husband watched her with those cold gray eyes. This is where you tell me the real reason, she said. Why marriage? Why me? I told you. You told me nothing. Her voice cracked. You've taken everything from me. You've made me your wife. The least you can do is tell me why. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the window overlooking the grounds. 8 months ago, he said quietly, someone tried to kill me. Car bomb. Missed by 30 seconds because I stopped to take a phone call. The FBI thinks it was the Belladonna family. I know better. What does that have to do with someone inside my organization is working against me? He turned back to face her. Someone close enough to know my schedule, smart enough to cover their tracks. I've been hunting them for months. Sheila's mind raced. And I'm... What? Bait? Your insurance. Dante's voice was matter-of-fact. A wife creates loyalty, stability. It makes people think I'm settled, distracted, gives me room to maneuver while they watch you instead of me. The truth hit her like ice water. She wasn't special. She wasn't chosen. She was a strategic move in a game she didn't understand. So I'm a decoy, she whispered. Your protection. I'm a human shield. Dante's expression didn't change. You're my wife, and that makes you untouchable. No one in this city will lay a hand on you without starting a war. Sheila set down the glass before she threw it. You didn't need to marry me for that. You could have hired security, put me in a safe house. That wouldn't have worked. Why not? Because he stopped, jaw tight, something flickering behind his eyes that looked almost like conflict. Because this was the only way to keep you close enough to control. And there it was. The truth beneath the strategy. Dante Moretti didn't just want her protected, he wanted her owned. Sheila felt something break inside her chest, the last fragile hope that maybe there was something human underneath the monster. I'm going to my room, she said. Sheila, don't! She held up a hand. Just don't! She made it halfway to the door before his voice stopped her one final time. Your brother starts at Exeter Academy Monday. Full scholarship, housing included. He'll be safe there. Sheila closed her eyes. You're sending him away. I'm protecting him. You're isolating me. I'm keeping my promises. She turned to look at him one last time. This man who'd bought her, married her, trapped her inside a life she never chose. I will hate you, she said quietly. Every single day for the rest of my life, I will hate you for this. Dante's expression remained carved from stone. I can live with that. Sheila walked out. Behind her, she heard the whiskey glass shatter against the wall, and somewhere deep in the estate, a clock struck midnight on the first day of her new life as Mrs. Dante Moretti, wife to a killer, prisoner in a gilded cage, and a pawn in a game where the rules were written in blood. But what Sheila didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, as she locked herself in her beautiful bedroom and finally let herself cry, was that in 3 weeks, everything would change. In 3 weeks, she would save a dying man's life. In 3 weeks, the walls between her and Dante would start to crack. And in 3 weeks, she would discover that the man who bought her wasn't the only monster hiding secrets. Because Sheila Vaughn had secrets too. And when they surfaced, the entire Moretti empire would burn. The first week of marriage tasted like ash and expensive wine. Sheila existed in the estate like a ghost haunting her own life. She woke in silk sheets that cost more than her old rent. She ate meals prepared by chefs she never met. She walked through rooms filled with art she didn't care about, while men in dark suits tracked her every movement from carefully calculated distances. And every night, she locked her bedroom door and counted the hours until morning. Dante kept his distance. They crossed paths at breakfast, him reading financial reports in Italian while she picked at food she couldn't taste. They sat across from each other at dinner, silence thick enough to choke on while staff moved around them like actors in a play neither of them wanted to perform. He asked if she needed anything. She said no. He left. She breathed. It was a routine built on avoidance and the kind of tension that made her teeth ache. On day 8, Elena knocked on Sheila's door holding an envelope. Mr. Moretti requested you attend an event tonight, she said. Fundraiser at the Met. Black tie. Car leaves at 7. Sheila looked up from her laptop where she'd been struggling through contract law assignments that felt meaningless now. And if I refuse? He said to remind you of the agreement. The agreement. The contract. The cage dressed up in legal language. Sheila took the envelope. Inside was an invitation printed on cardstock so expensive it felt like fabric. Also inside, a black American Express card with her new name embossed in silver. Sheila Moretti. She still couldn't look at it without feeling sick. There's a dress in your closet, Elena added. Hair and makeup will arrive at 5. I can do my own, Mr. Moretti insists. Of course he did, because this wasn't about her. It was about the image, the performance. Playing the role of devoted wife to a man she'd fantasized about killing at least 6 times in the past week. At 5 o'clock, 2 women arrived with equipment that looked like it belonged backstage at Fashion Week. They transformed Sheila into someone she barely recognized. Hair swept into an elegant updo, makeup that made her eyes look enormous, diamond earrings that caught the light like trapped stars. The dress was emerald silk, floor length, cut low enough in the back to make her uncomfortable. It fit perfectly, because of course it did. Dante had probably hired someone to take her measurements while she slept. At 6:45, she descended the main staircase on heels that made her ankles wobble. Dante was waiting in the foyer. He looked devastating. Black tuxedo tailored so precisely it looked painted on. Hair swept back. The tattoos she'd glimpsed before now, carefully hidden beneath crisp white collar and cuffs. But she could see the edge of ink creeping up his neck, dark lines that disappeared into his hairline like secrets trying to escape. His eyes tracked her descent with an intensity that made her stumble on the last step. He caught her elbow, steadied her, didn't let go. "You look beautiful," Dante said quietly. Sheila pulled her arm free. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Pretend this is real." Something flickered in his expression, there and gone too fast to identify. The car's waiting. The fundraiser was everything Sheila expected, and worse, Manhattan's elite packed into the Met like designer-dressed vultures circling culture they didn't understand. Orchestra music drifted through marble halls, champagne flowed, diamonds glittered on necks and wrists and fingers like captured light. And everywhere, people stared. At her, at Dante, at the way his hand rested possessively on her lower back as he guided her through the crowd. "Dante!" A man in his 60s approached with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I heard congratulations are in order." "Senator?" Dante's voice was smooth as silk over steel. "Allow me to introduce my wife, Sheila. This is Senator Morrison." The senator's gaze crawled over her like oil. "Pleasure. Where did you two meet?" "Through family," Dante said before Sheila could respond. It was inevitable. The lie came so easily, so perfectly crafted. Sheila wanted to scream the truth, wanted to tell this senator and everyone else exactly what kind of man Dante Moretti really was. Instead, she smiled. Inevitable. That's one word for it. Dante's hand tightened against her back. A warning. They moved through the crowd like sharks through water. Dante introduced her to judges, businessmen, politicians, people who shook her hand while their eyes calculated her worth, her purpose, her place in whatever game they were all playing. And through it all, Sheila performed, smiled at the right moments, laughed at terrible jokes, let Dante touch her, hand on her waist, fingers brushing her shoulder, the casual intimacy of a man with his wife. It made her want to crawl out of her skin. 2 hours in, she escaped to the bathroom. The ladies' room was all marble and gold fixtures and mirrors that showed her a stranger's face. Sheila braced her hands against the sink and tried to remember how to breathe. The door opened. A woman entered, late 30s, red dress, dangerous beauty wrapped in designer labels and the kind of confidence that came from old money. She stopped when she saw Sheila. "You're the new wife," she said. Not a question. "And you are?" "Valentina Caruso." She pulled out lipstick and applied it with surgical precision. "Vincent's sister." The name hit Sheila like cold water. Vincent Caruso. Dante's consigliere. The man she'd seen twice at the estate, always watching, always calculating, making her skin crawl without ever saying a word. "I didn't know Vincent had a sister." "Most people don't." Valentina capped the lipstick and turned to face Sheila directly. "But I know you. Columbia Law, top 15% of your class, part-time work at Manhattan Legal Services. Father disappeared 8 years ago into addiction and debt." Sheila's pulse spiked. "How do you... I make it my business to know who enters our world." Valentina's smile was sharp as broken glass, especially when they arrive through unconventional means. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please." Valentina stepped closer. "You think people don't talk? Dante Moretti suddenly marries a nobody law student? No engagement, no announcement, just a courthouse ceremony and photographers who conveniently happened to be there?" Sheila's throat closed. "Here's some free advice," Valentina continued. "Whatever arrangement you have with Dante, remember this. Men like him don't keep things they can't use. The moment you stop being valuable, you become disposable." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I was married to a man like Dante once." Valentina's voice dropped. "And when he was done with me, I barely escaped with my life." She left before Sheila could respond. Sheila stood alone in the bathroom, heart hammering against her ribs, Valentina's warning echoing in her skull like a death sentence. When she returned to the main hall, Dante was deep in conversation with 3 men she didn't recognize. His expression was cold, controlled, the mask he wore in public. But when he saw her, something shifted. His gaze locked onto hers across the crowd. And for just a second, just one heartbeat, she saw something that looked almost like concern. Then it was gone. He excused himself from the conversation and crossed to her side. "You were gone a long time. I needed air. You look pale." "I'm fine." His hand cupped her elbow. "We're leaving." "The event isn't now, Sheila." The command in his voice left no room for argument. They were in the car 5 minutes later, Manhattan lights streaming past tinted windows. Dante hadn't said a word since they left, just sat in rigid silence while tension filled the space between them like poison gas. Finally, Sheila couldn't take it anymore. "Vincent's sister told me something interesting tonight." Dante's jaw tightened. "What did Valentina say?" "That I'm disposable. That the moment I stop being useful, you'll get rid of me." "And you believed her." "Should I?" Dante turned to look at her. In the dim light of the car, his eyes were black instead of gray. Unreadable. "Valentina has her own agenda. She's bitter because her husband left her for someone younger. Don't listen to anything she says." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting." Sheila laughed, sharp and bitter. "You know what's funny? You demand I trust you, but you won't give me a single reason to. I keep my promises. You forced me into a contract. I protected your brother, paid for your education, put a roof over your head. You bought me like property." The words exploded out of her, louder than she intended, sharper. The driver's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Dante's voice dropped to something dangerous. "Pull over." "Sir?" "Pull. Over." The car stopped on the side of the road. Dante gestured to the driver. "Get out." "Mr. Moretti? 5 minutes? Walk." The driver obeyed without another word. Sheila and Dante sat alone in the back of the Mercedes while traffic streamed past and the city hummed around them like a living thing. "You want honesty?" Dante's voice was quiet, deadly. "Fine. Yes, I bought you. Yes, I forced you into this marriage. Yes, I control every aspect of your life right now." Then Valentina was right. "No." He shifted to face her fully. "Because unlike her ex-husband, I don't throw away my investments. You're not disposable, Sheila. You're—" He stopped, jaw working like the words were caught in his throat. "I'm what?" "You're mine." The possessiveness in his voice made her skin crawl, and something else she refused to name. "And I protect what's mine. Always." "That's not protection. That's ownership. Call it whatever you want, but understand this." Dante leaned closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne and see the scar cutting through his eyebrow. "As long as you wear my name, you're under my protection. No one touches you. No one threatens you. No one so much as looks at you wrong without answering to me. And what if I don't want that?" "Too bad." Sheila shoved him. It was stupid, reckless. He barely moved, but something in his expression cracked. "Hit me again," he said quietly. "What?" "If it makes you feel better, hit me again." She stared at him. This man who'd destroyed her life. This monster dressed in expensive suits who spoke about protection like it justified imprisonment. Her hand came up, stopped an inch from his face. She couldn't do it. Hated that she couldn't do it. Dante caught her wrist, gently. His thumb pressed against her racing pulse. "You're stronger than you think." "I'm trapped." "You're surviving." "It's not the same thing." "No," Dante agreed, "but it's a start." He released her wrist and knocked on the partition. The driver returned. They drove the rest of the way to the estate in silence. That night, Sheila lay awake staring at the ceiling and wondering how long she could survive in a cage before she forgot what freedom felt like. The answer came sooner than she expected. Week 2 brought a routine that felt like slow suffocation. Sheila attended classes remotely. Dante worked from his office, doors always closed, conversations always in Italian or encrypted phone calls that ended when she walked past. They maintained their careful distance. Breakfast together, dinner together, nothing in between. It was sustainable, almost bearable. Then Tuesday shattered everything. Sheila was in the library, a room she'd claimed as her study space because it was farthest from Dante's office, when shouting erupted from downstairs. Loud, violent, Italian words she didn't understand but recognized as curses. She crept to the top of the stairs. Below, in the marble foyer, Dante had Vincent Caruso pinned against the wall by his throat. 4 other men stood in a semicircle, hands hovering near concealed weapons, faces carved from stone. "Lying to me!" Dante's voice was rage barely contained. "The shipment was supposed to arrive Tuesday. It's Friday, and there's nothing." Vincent clawed at Dante's hand. I don't know what happened." "You don't know. You're my consigliere. Your job is to know." "Someone must have," Vincent gasped for air, "must have interfered." Dante slammed him against the wall again. Vincent's head cracked against marble. One of the other men stepped forward. "Boss, he can't talk if you kill him." For a long moment, Dante didn't move. Then he released Vincent, who collapsed coughing. "Find out what happened to my shipment," Dante said quietly, which was somehow worse than the shouting. "You have 24 hours. If you don't have answers, we're going to have a very different conversation." Vincent scrambled to his feet and fled. The other men dispersed. Dante stood alone in the foyer, chest heaving, hands clenched into fists. Then he looked up, directly at where Sheila stood frozen at the top of the stairs. Their eyes met, and she saw it. The violence barely leashed beneath his controlled exterior, the monster wearing a man's face. This was who she'd married. This was the truth underneath the tailored suits and careful manners. Dante climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. Sheila wanted to run, couldn't move. He stopped 2 steps below her, close enough to touch. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." "And? And what? You want me to pretend I didn't just watch you almost kill someone?" Vincent made a mistake. Mistakes have consequences. "You were choking him." "I was making a point." Sheila's voice shook. "You're a monster." Dante's expression didn't change. "I never pretended to be anything else." He walked past her down the hallway. Sheila stood on the stairs shaking, her stomach churning, bile rising in her throat. She made it to the bathroom before she threw up. That night, sleep was impossible. Every time Sheila closed her eyes, she saw Dante's hand around Vincent's throat, saw the cold fury in his eyes, saw the man who'd promised to protect her revealing exactly what that protection looked like: violence, control, power enforced through fear. At 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs to the kitchen. The estate was dark, silent, staff long gone to their quarters. She was pouring water when movement in her peripheral vision made her jump. Dante stood in the doorway. No suit jacket, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing the tattoos she'd only glimpsed before, intricate black ink covering both forearms in patterns that looked like prayer and punishment tangled together. "You can't sleep," he said. It wasn't a question. Sheila set down the glass. "Neither can you, apparently." "I don't sleep much." "Guilty conscience?" "Something like that." He moved into the kitchen, pulled a bottle of whiskey from a cabinet, poured 2 glasses, offered her one. She almost refused, took it instead. They stood on opposite sides of the kitchen island, drinking expensive whiskey at 3 in the morning like strangers at a very expensive wake. "You think I'm a monster," Dante said finally. "You are a monster." "Maybe." He swirled the whiskey in his glass. "But I'm a monster who keeps his promises. That doesn't make it better. Doesn't make it worse either." Sheila wanted to throw the glass at him. "How do you live with yourself? Practice." "That's not funny." "It wasn't meant to be." Dante looked at her across the marble island. "You want me to apologize for who I am? For what I do?" "I can't. This is my world. This is how it works." "Then your world is broken." "Yes." His voice was quiet, final. "It is." The admission surprised her. Sheila set down her glass. "Why did you really marry me? And don't give me that speech about strategy and protection. Tell me the truth." Dante was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because 8 months ago, someone tried to kill me, and I realized I'd spent 20 years building an empire and had no one to leave it to. No family, no legacy, just blood and money and enemies. So I'm..." "What? Your legacy plan? Your insurance that I'm not alone when they finally succeed?" The rawness in his voice caught her off guard, made him sound almost human. Almost. "They're going to kill you," Sheila said. "Probably." And you're okay with that? I've been okay with it since I was 19 years old. Dante finished his whiskey. But I'm not okay with leaving nothing behind, so yes, Sheila, you're my legacy, my guarantee that when I'm gone, something remains. I'm not your insurance policy. You're whatever I need you to be. And there it was again, the possession, the control, the reminder that no matter what he revealed in dark kitchens at 3 a.m, she was still property. Sheila walked out without another word. Behind her, she heard glass shatter against marble. She didn't look back. The fragile peace lasted 6 more days. Then Thursday morning exploded into chaos. Sheila was in the library working through case law when shouting erupted from downstairs. Not Italian this time. English. Panicked. She ran to the stairs. Blood. So much blood. 2 of Dante's men were carrying a third between them, a younger guy Sheila had seen around the estate. He was bleeding from his side, red soaking through his shirt, dripping onto white marble in patterns that looked like abstract art painted in death. "Get him to the dining table!" Dante's voice cut through the chaos. He was already there, sleeves rolled up, face carved from concentration. Someone call Dr. Russo. "He's not answering," Elena shouted from somewhere. "Then keep trying." They laid the wounded man on the dining table. He screamed. The sound was animal. Wrong. Sheila found herself moving before her brain caught up. She pushed through the crowd of men and stopped at the table's edge, close enough to see the wound, a gunshot, entry point just below the ribs, bleeding too fast. "He needs a hospital," she said. Dante didn't look at her. "Can't risk it. Police get involved, questions get asked. He's going to die. Not if we stop the bleeding. You don't have medical—" "I know." Dante's voice was tight, controlled, barely. "But unless Dr. Russo answers his goddamn phone in the next 2 minutes, we don't have a choice." The wounded man convulsed. More blood. Someone was crying, and Sheila heard her father's voice in her head. Years ago. Before the addiction. Before the abandonment. When Robert Vaughn had been a functional human being who taught his daughter things he probably shouldn't have. Pressure first, always pressure. Count to 10. Control the bleeding or nothing else matters. "Move," Sheila heard herself say. Dante's head snapped up. "What?" "Move. Now." She didn't wait for permission, just grabbed clean towels from a passing staff member and pressed them against the wound. The man screamed again. "Hold him down," Sheila ordered. 2 men obeyed instantly. She applied pressure. Counted. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady because if she stopped to think about what she was doing, she'd fall apart. "Sheila," Dante started. "Shut up, I need—" She looked around wildly. "Needle and thread, medical grade if you have it, alcohol, clean water, towels, bandages, move!" The household erupted into action. Supplies appeared. Sheila had never actually done this before. She'd watched her father demonstrate on oranges and medical dummies during the strange 6 months when he'd been convinced he wanted to be an EMT. But theory was different from practice, and practice was different from a man dying on a dining table while a crime boss watched you try to save him. She threaded the needle with shaking hands. "This is going to hurt," she told the wounded man. "I'm sorry." Then she started stitching. It was butchery. Crude. Messy. Nothing like what a real surgeon would do. But slowly, the bleeding slowed. The wound closed. The man's screaming faded to whimpers. Sheila tied off the last stitch and stepped back. Her hands were covered in blood. Her shirt was ruined. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "Someone watch him," she managed. "If the bleeding starts again or he develops a fever, you need a real doctor. I just bought you time." Then she turned and walked calmly to the nearest bathroom. Made it to the toilet before she threw up. She was still there, kneeling on cold tile, shaking, crying, blood drying on her hands, when the door opened. Dante. He crouched beside her, didn't speak, just handed her a wet towel. Sheila wiped her hands. The blood wouldn't come off completely. It stained the creases of her palms like evidence of a crime. "Where did you learn that?" Dante asked quietly. "My father, before he—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "You saved Marco's life." "I bought him time. It's not the same thing." "It is to him." Sheila looked up. Dante was watching her with an expression she'd never seen before, something that looked almost like admiration. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't what?" "Don't look at me like I'm one of you. I'm not. I'll never be." Dante's jaw tightened. "You just stitched up a gunshot wound on my dining table. You're more one of us than you want to admit." "That's not—" "You didn't hesitate, didn't ask questions, just acted. That's exactly what being one of us means." Sheila shoved him. He caught her wrists. They stayed frozen like that, her kneeling on the bathroom floor, him crouched beside her, both of them breathing too hard, too close, the air between them charged with something Sheila refused to name. "Let go of me," she said. "Not yet." "Dante, you're incredible." His voice was rough, raw. "You're terrified and trapped, and you still... Whatever he was going to say died when their eyes met, and Sheila saw it, really saw it for the first time. The way Dante looked at her wasn't possession. It was hunger. Not for her body. For her. For the strength she didn't know she had. For the defiance that wouldn't break. For every piece of her that refused to submit, even when submission was the only logical choice. He wanted her, not as property, as an equal. The realization hit like lightning. "No," Sheila breathed. "No, you don't get to—" She pulled free and scrambled to her feet, ran, made it to her bedroom and locked the door, pressed her back against it and slid down to the floor. Her hands were still shaking, still stained with blood that wasn't hers, still carrying the weight of a life she'd saved in the home of a monster who was looking at her like she was salvation instead of prisoner. This couldn't happen. Whatever was building between them, this toxic mix of fear and fury and something dangerous underneath, it had to stop. Because if it didn't stop, Sheila was going to drown. And she didn't know if Dante would save her or hold her under. Twak. The next morning, everything changed again. Sheila woke to pounding on her door. "Mrs. Moretti!" Elena's voice. Panicked. Wrong. Sheila stumbled out of bed and unlocked the door. Elena stood in the hallway, face pale, phone clutched in her shaking hand. "You need to come downstairs, now." "What's up?" "Just come." Sheila followed her down to Dante's office. The door was open. Inside, Dante stood behind his desk, staring at something on his computer screen. Vincent was there. 3 other men. All of them looked like they'd seen death walking. "What happened?" Sheila asked. Dante didn't turn around, just gestured to the screen. Sheila stepped closer. Security camera footage, black and white. Timestamp from 2 nights ago. It showed the Eastern warehouse Dante owned. Showed men loading cargo into trucks. Showed... Her breath caught. Vincent, standing off to the side, talking to someone. The camera angle shifted, and Sheila saw the man Vincent was talking to. Recognized him from news articles, federal profiles, case studies she'd read in criminal law class. Luca Belladonna, head of the Belladonna crime family. Dante's biggest rival. The man who'd allegedly ordered the car bombing 8 months ago. Vincent was talking to him, smiling, shaking his hand. "Oh my God," Sheila whispered. "He's been selling me out for months." Dante's voice was dead, hollow. The missing shipments, the warehouse fires, the ambush that nearly killed Marco. All of it was Vincent feeding information to Belladonna. Vincent stood in the corner, hands zip-tied behind his back, face swollen from what looked like a recent beating. "I can explain." "Explain?" Dante finally turned. His face was a mask of rage barely contained. "Explain how my most trusted advisor has been working with the man trying to destroy me." "He offered me..." Vincent's voice cracked. "He offered me a percentage, a territory of my own. You never gave me anything but orders." "I gave you everything," Dante roared. "I made you, trusted you, and you sold me out for money?" "For respect," Vincent shouted back. "You treat everyone like property, like tools to be used and discarded. I wanted to be a partner, not a servant." The words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Dante moved so fast Sheila barely saw it. 1 second he was behind the desk. The next he had Vincent by the throat, slamming him against the wall exactly like he had 2 weeks ago. Except this time he didn't stop. "Boss," one of the men started. Dante ignored him. Vincent's face turned purple. His eyes bulged. He was dying, right there in front of everyone. And Sheila felt something inside her snap. Stop! She didn't plan to scream, didn't plan to move, but suddenly she was between them, hands on Dante's chest, pushing with strength she didn't know she had. Let him go! Dante's eyes were black, empty, the gray completely swallowed by something darker. Get out of the way, Sheila. No. I said get out. I heard you. She pushed harder. And I said no. You kill him like this, you're proving him right. You're proving you're exactly what he said. A monster who treats people like property. He betrayed me. So deal with it like a man, not an animal. The words came out before she could stop them. Everyone in the room froze. You didn't talk to Dante Moretti like that. Nobody did. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then slowly, so slowly, Dante's hand opened. Vincent collapsed, coughing and gasping. Dante stepped back, looked at Sheila, really looked at her. And she saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Uncertainty. Get him out of my sight, Dante said quietly. Not to Sheila, to his men. Lock him in the East Wing until I decide what to do with him. They dragged Vincent away. The office emptied, until only Sheila and Dante remained. The silence was deafening. You stopped me, Dante said finally. Yes, no one stops me. I just did. He crossed to the window, stood with his back to her, hands clenched into fists. Vincent's right. I treat people like tools, like property. It's how I was taught, how I survived. That doesn't make it right. No. He turned to face her. But it's kept me alive for 20 years. Sheila's heart was still racing, adrenaline still flooding her system. What are you going to do with him? I don't know. If you kill him. He betrayed me, Sheila. In my world, that's a death sentence. In my world, it's a crime that deserves a trial. Your world doesn't exist here. Then maybe it should. The challenge hung between them like a live wire. Dante moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. He stopped inches from her, close enough that she could see silver threaded through his dark hair, close enough to count the scars on his knuckles. You're trying to save him, Dante said quietly. I'm trying to save you from becoming exactly what he accused you of being. And what if I already am? Then prove him wrong. Something shifted in Dante's expression, the mask cracking, the monster receding just enough to show the man underneath. Why do you care? He asked. After everything I've done to you, why do you care what I become? Sheila didn't have an answer, because she shouldn't care. Should hate him completely. Should want him to become the monster that would give her an excuse to stop feeling this horrible, confusing pull towards someone who destroyed her life. But standing there in his office with sunlight streaming through windows and blood still stained under her fingernails from saving one of his men, she realized something terrifying. She was starting to see him. Not the monster, not the captor. The man. Broken and violent and built from scars, but still a man capable of uncertainty and rage and something that looked almost like... No. She couldn't finish that thought. Wouldn't. I should go, she whispered. Sheila, just let me go. She turned toward the door. His hand caught her wrist. Gentle. Not restraining, just holding. Thank you, Dante said quietly, for stopping me, for saving Marco, for... His voice caught, for seeing something in me worth saving. Sheila looked down at where his hand circled her wrist, at the tattoos covering his forearms that she could now see clearly, not random patterns, but names. Dozens of names inked in elegant script. Who are they? She heard herself ask. People I've lost. Dante's thumb traced unconsciously over the ink. Reminders that everyone I've ever cared about ends up dead or betrayed. That's why you don't let people close. That's why I don't let people close, he agreed. But you let me in. I didn't let you in. You broke down the door. Despite everything, despite the fear and the fury and the impossible situation, Sheila almost smiled. What am I going to do with you? Dante asked. And Sheila realized with horrifying clarity that the question wasn't rhetorical. He genuinely didn't know. This man who controlled everything, who planned every move, who treated life like a chess game he'd already won, he didn't know what to do with her. And that made her more dangerous than any weapon in his arsenal. Let me go, she said again, softer this time. Dante's hand slid away. Sheila walked out, made it halfway to the stairs before her legs gave out, and she had to sit down right there in the hallway, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. She'd stopped Dante Moretti from killing someone. She'd challenged him in front of his men. She'd thanked him and meant it. And worse, so much worse, she'd felt something when his hand touched her wrist that wasn't fear. That night, Sheila couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't stop seeing the look in Dante's eyes when she stepped between him and Vincent, like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve, like she was something precious he didn't know how to hold without breaking. At midnight, someone knocked on her door. Sheila opened it, expecting Elena, found Dante instead. He stood in the hallway, still wearing the clothes from this morning, looking exhausted and dangerous and somehow vulnerable all at once. "Can't sleep," he said. It wasn't a question. "Neither can you, apparently. I need to show you something. Dante, please." The word was so unexpected it froze every protest in her throat. She followed him downstairs, through the house, out a side door she'd never noticed. They crossed the grounds to a building separate from the main house, smaller, older, built from stone that looked like it had been transplanted from somewhere ancient. Dante unlocked the door. Inside was a chapel. Not active. No services held here. But beautiful in the way abandoned holy places always are. Stained glass windows, wooden pews worn smooth by decades of use, candles that still smelled faintly of wax and smoke. "My grandmother built this," Dante said quietly, "when she first came to America. She believed—" He stopped, swallowed. "She believed that even people like us deserved a place to ask for forgiveness." Sheila walked between the pews, fingers trailing over aged wood. "Do you come here?" "Sometimes, when the violence gets too heavy." "And does it help?" "No." His voice was raw. "But I keep coming anyway." They stood in silence while moonlight streamed through stained glass, painting them both in colors, red and blue and gold. "Vincent's gone," Dante said finally. Sheila's head snapped up. "You killed him?" "No, I gave him money and put him on a plane to Buenos Aires. He's alive, exiled, broken, but breathing." "Why?" "Because you were right." Dante turned to face her. "Because killing him would have made me exactly what he accused me of being, and I—" His voice cracked. "I don't want to be that. Not for you." The words hit her like a physical blow. "This doesn't change anything," Sheila whispered. "I know. I'm still your prisoner. I know that too." "Then why—" "Because maybe—" Dante stepped closer. "Maybe if I start becoming someone different, someone better, you'll eventually—" He didn't finish. Couldn't. But Sheila understood. He wanted her to choose him. Not because she was forced to, because she wanted to. And that was the most terrifying thing he could have possibly said. Because it meant Dante Moretti, feared crime boss, the Reaper of Manhattan, monster made flesh, was capable of hope. And hope was dangerous. Hope could destroy them both. "I need to go," Sheila said. But this time when she turned to leave, Dante didn't stop her. Just watched her walk away with an expression that looked like someone watching their last chance at redemption disappear into darkness. Sheila made it back to her bedroom, locked the door, slid down to sit with her back pressed against wood, and realized with horrible clarity that everything had just changed, because 3 weeks ago she'd married a monster. But tonight she'd seen the man underneath, and she didn't know which one scared her more. The weeks after Vincent's exile moved like water through Sheila's fingers, impossible to hold, impossible to stop. Something had shifted between her and Dante that night in the chapel. Not trust, not forgiveness, but a crack in the foundation of their carefully maintained war. They still ate breakfast in silence, still kept separate bedrooms, still moved around each other like planets in orbit, close enough to feel the pull but never quite touching. But now when their eyes met across the dinner table, something passed between them that Sheila couldn't name and didn't want to examine. It felt like drowning in slow motion. She threw herself into law school to escape it. Final exams were 3 weeks away. The bar exam loomed after that. If she could just survive until graduation, maybe she could figure out what came next. Maybe she could find a way to reclaim some piece of herself that didn't belong to Dante Moretti. It was a fantasy. She knew it was a fantasy. But she clung to it anyway, because the alternative was admitting that she was starting to see Dante as something other than her captor, and that admission would destroy her. On a Tuesday morning in late November, Sheila was in the library reviewing constitutional law when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Something made her pick up. Hello? Silence, then breathing, heavy, deliberate. Who is this? Sheila demanded. A voice. Male. Unfamiliar. You don't know me, Mrs. Moretti, but I know you. Ice flooded her veins. How did you get this number? That's not important. What's important is what I'm about to tell you. The voice was calm, almost friendly, which made it worse. Your husband is not who you think he is. I'm hanging up. Your father didn't vanish into addiction, Sheila. He was murdered. Her hand froze. The phone pressed so hard against her ear, it hurt. What did you say? Robert Vaughn. Your father. He didn't disappear 8 years ago. He was killed, and Dante Moretti gave the order. The room tilted sideways. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself why a man like Dante would suddenly decide to marry a nobody law student. Ask yourself why he knew exactly how much debt your father owed. Ask yourself why he had photographs of your brother before you ever agreed to anything. Sheila couldn't breathe, couldn't think. He's been watching you for years, the voice continued, planning this. Your father crossed him once. Dante doesn't forgive. He waited until you were old enough, desperate enough, vulnerable enough. Then he took you, not as payment for a debt, Sheila, as revenge. No, meet me. Tonight. I have proof. Documents. Evidence. Everything you need to know the truth about who you really married. Who are you? Someone who wants to help you. A pause. Someone who loved your father. The line went dead. Sheila sat frozen in the library chair, phone still pressed to her ear, the silence on the other end louder than screaming. This couldn't be real. Her father was alive somewhere, drowning in pills and poker debts. That was the story she'd believed for 8 years, the story that made sense. But what if it wasn't true? What if everything was a lie? Her hands shook as she pulled up Google. Typed, Robert Vaughn missing New York 2018. Nothing useful, just old social media profiles. A LinkedIn page that hadn't been updated in a decade. She tried. Robert Vaughn, death, 2018. Still nothing, but that didn't mean anything. If someone like Dante wanted to make a body disappear, it would disappear completely. No trace, no evidence, no grave. Sheila's vision blurred. She was going to be sick. The library door opened. Dante. He stopped when he saw her. You're pale. What's wrong? Sheila looked up at him. This man she'd married, this monster who'd shown her glimpses of humanity, this complicated, impossible person she'd started to see as something other than pure evil, and wondered if everything was a performance, if the vulnerability she'd glimpsed was just another manipulation, if she'd been falling for a lie this entire time. Nothing, she managed. Just tired. Dante moved closer, those gray eyes scanning her face like he could read thoughts written on her skin. You're a terrible liar. I'm fine. Sheila, I said I'm fine. The words came out sharper than intended. Dante's expression shifted. Something that looked like hurt flickered and vanished. Okay. I came to tell you I have a business trip tomorrow. Sicily. 4 days. You'll stay here with security. I don't need a babysitter. You're not getting a choice. The familiar command in his voice made rage flare hot in her chest, but underneath it was something else. Something that felt like grief for a connection that might never have been real. When do you leave? She asked. Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. Fine. Dante studied her for a long moment. Are you sure nothing's wrong? Sheila forced herself to meet his eyes. Positive. He didn't believe her. She could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his hands flexed like he wanted to reach for her but knew better. If something happens while I'm gone, Dante said quietly, you call me, immediately, no matter what time, no matter what it is. Nothing's going to happen. Promise me, Sheila. The intensity in his voice almost broke her, almost made her tell him about the phone call. Almost. I promise, she lied. Dante nodded and left. The moment the door closed, Sheila pulled out the burner phone the unknown caller had mentioned would arrive. It was already there, tucked into her backpack. She hadn't noticed it before, which meant someone had been in her room, had access to her things, was close enough to touch her belongings without anyone noticing. The phone had one message. Tonight, 11 p.m., 428 West Street. Come alone. Tell no one. Your father deserves the truth. Sheila stared at the address. It was in the meatpacking district, industrial, isolated. Everything about this screamed trap. But what if it wasn't? What if her father really was dead and Dante had lied about everything? She had to know. Even if it killed her, she had to know. At 10:30 that night, Sheila slipped out of the estate. She'd studied the security patterns for weeks, knew when the guards changed shifts, knew which cameras had blind spots, knew the service entrance that led to the wooded area beyond the property line. She wore dark clothes, carried cash and the burner phone, left her regular phone in her bedroom so they couldn't track her. The November air bit through her jacket as she moved through the trees. Behind her, the estate glowed like a fortress. Ahead was only darkness and the highway that would take her into Manhattan. It took 40 minutes to reach the main road and flag down a cab. The driver looked at her like she was insane. Young woman alone on a highway at night asking for a ride into the city. But he took her money and drove. Sheila watched the city approach through the window. Lights growing brighter. Buildings rising like teeth. This was stupid. This was dangerous. This was probably going to get her killed. But she couldn't stop. The cab dropped her 3 blocks from the address. Sheila walked the rest of the way, every nerve screaming at her to run. The meatpacking district at night was all shadows and closed warehouses, and the kind of silence that felt like held breath before violence. 428 West Street was an old brick building, windows dark, door slightly ajar. Sheila's hand shook as she pushed it open. "Hello?" Her voice echoed in the empty space. The interior was gutted, exposed brick, concrete floors, metal support beams reaching toward a ceiling lost in darkness. Industrial, abandoned, perfect for whatever this was. Footsteps behind her. Sheila spun. A man stepped out of the shadows. 50s, sharp suit, silver hair. Face she didn't recognize but felt like she should. "Mrs. Moretti," he said. "Thank you for coming." "Who are you?" "My name is Luca Belladonna." The name hit her like a fist. Luca Belladonna, Dante's rival. The man who'd ordered the car bombing. The man Vincent had been feeding information to before his exile. Sheila backed toward the door. "Don't run," Luca said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to give you the truth. You're the one who tried to kill my husband." "Your husband killed my brother." Luca's voice was cold, factual. 15 years ago. Shot him in the head and dumped him in the Hudson. So yes, I tried to kill Dante. And I'll keep trying until I succeed. But that's not why you're here." "Then why am I here?" Luca pulled a folder from inside his jacket, held it out. Sheila didn't take it. "Your father," Luca said, "worked for me. Not as a criminal, as an accountant. He was brilliant with numbers. Managed my legitimate businesses, real estate, investments, shipping. He was good, honest. Never touched the illegal side. My father was an addict. Your father became an addict after Dante destroyed his life." Luca's voice was quiet. 8 years ago, Robert discovered something. Evidence that Dante was laundering money through companies your father managed. Robert came to me, told me what he'd found, said he was going to the FBI. Sheila's legs felt weak. "What happened?" "I told him not to. Told him it was suicide. But Robert believed in doing the right thing. He believed the system worked." Luca's laugh was bitter. 3 days later, he disappeared. I searched for months. Finally found him in a warehouse in Queens, dead. Bullet to the back of the head. Dante's signature. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Luca opened the folder. "These are the documents Robert gave me before he died. Bank records, transfer receipts. All of it showing how Dante used your father's work to cover millions in dirty money. And this," he pulled out a photograph. Sheila's knees buckled. The photo showed a body. Male. Face destroyed, but the build was right. The clothes familiar. The watch on the left wrist. She'd given him that watch for Father's Day when she was 16. Her father. Dead. "No," she whispered. "I'm sorry." Luca's voice was gentle, almost kind. But you deserve to know. Dante didn't marry you because of a debt. He married you because your father humiliated him, threatened to expose him, and Dante never forgives, never forgets. He waited until you were old enough and desperate enough. Then he took everything your father had left behind. The folder slipped from Sheila's numb fingers, papers scattered across concrete like evidence of a crime scene. He killed my father, she breathed. Yes. And he's been lying to me this entire time. Yes. Everything. The debt, the contract, the marriage, it was all revenge. Luca stepped closer. You are Dante Moretti's revenge against a man who dared to stand up to him. And when he's done with you, when you've served your purpose, you'll end up just like your father, dead in a warehouse somewhere, forgotten. Sheila couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The walls were closing in. I can help you, Luca said quietly. I have resources, safe houses, money. I can get you out of the country, give you a new identity, a new life. Why would you help me? Because your father was a good man, because Dante took him from you, and because, Luca's voice hardened, because you can help me destroy him. There it was, the real reason. You want me to spy for you, Sheila said. I want you to survive. And if surviving means giving me information that brings Dante down, then yes. Luca pulled out a phone. Take this. My number's programmed. When you're ready, when you've seen enough, learned enough, you call me. I'll get you out. Sheila stared at the phone, at the scattered documents showing her father's death, at the man offering her freedom with strings attached. I need to think, she managed. Don't think too long. Dante's not stupid. Eventually he'll figure out you know. And when he does, Luca didn't finish. Didn't need to. Sheila grabbed the phone and ran. She didn't remember the cab ride back. Didn't remember climbing through the service entrance or sneaking past security or making it to her bedroom without being caught. Just found herself sitting on the floor with her back against the locked door, staring at nothing while her entire world collapsed. Dante had killed her father. Everything, every single thing was built on that lie. The debt wasn't real. The marriage was revenge. She was a trophy, a symbol, a final insult to a dead man who dared to threaten the great Dante Moretti. Sheila pulled out her regular phone with shaking hands, scrolled through photos until she found the ones from childhood. Her father smiling, healthy, whole, before the addiction that apparently didn't exist, before the disappearance that was actually murder, before Dante destroyed everything. She was going to be sick. Made it to the bathroom in time to throw up. Knelt on cold tile crying so hard she couldn't breathe. When the tears finally stopped, Sheila washed her face and stared at herself in the mirror. Red eyes, hollow cheeks, a stranger wearing her face. This woman had married her father's killer. This woman had started to see humanity in a monster. This woman had almost started to care. The realization made her want to shatter the mirror. A knock at her bedroom door froze her mid-breath. Sheila? Elena's voice. Mr. Moretti left for Sicily an hour ago. He wanted me to check on you. Of course he did. Even from another country, he controlled her. I'm fine, Sheila called. Her voice sounded almost normal. Just tired. There's breakfast downstairs when you're ready. Footsteps retreated. Sheila waited until silence returned before leaving the bathroom. 4 days. She had 4 days while Dante was gone to figure out what to do. 4 days to decide if she was going to run, fight, or destroy everything from the inside. 4 days before the monster came home. She sat on the edge of her bed and pulled out the phone Luca had given her. One number programmed. One lifeline to a man who wanted to use her just as much as Dante had. But at least Luca was honest about it. At least he didn't pretend to care. Sheila's finger hovered over the call button, then stopped. Because calling Luca meant choosing a side. And she wasn't ready to choose yet. Instead, she opened her laptop and started searching. Robert Vaughn, FBI investigation. Dante Moretti, money laundering 2018 warehouse murder queens, unsolved hours passed. The sun rose, breakfast came and went untouched. And slowly, piece by piece, Sheila assembled the truth. Her father had been working with federal investigators, building a case against Dante. The evidence was circumstantial, but there. News articles about an unnamed witness in an organized crime investigation, Federal case files that went nowhere after a key witness disappeared. Robert Vaughn had tried to take down Dante Moretti, and Dante had killed him for it, then waited 8 years for the perfect revenge. Marrying his daughter, owning her, making her wear his name. The cruelty was breathtaking. At noon, Sheila's regular phone buzzed. Message from Dante. Landed safely. How are you? She stared at the screen. Wanted to type, I know what you did. Wanted to type, you killed my father, you fucking monster. Wanted to type, I will destroy you. Instead, she typed, fine, safe. His response came immediately. Good. Call if you need anything. Sheila threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. The sound was satisfying. Not satisfying enough. She spent the afternoon in the library pulling every legal text she owned. If Dante had killed her father, there was evidence. Had to be evidence. She just needed to find it. Bank records, property transfers, shell companies. Follow the money. That's what they'd taught her in criminal law. Always follow the money. By evening, Sheila had a plan forming. It was dangerous, probably suicidal, but it was something. She would stay. Play the dutiful wife, get access to Dante's files, his records. Everything he kept locked in that office he thought was secure. She would build a case, and when she had enough evidence, she would burn his entire empire to the ground. Not for Luca, not for revenge, for her father, for the man who tried to do the right thing and died for it. The decision settled over her like armor. No more doubts, no more conflicted feelings. No more seeing Dante as anything other than what he was, a killer who destroyed her family and built her prison from the pieces. Dante returned on Friday afternoon. Sheila heard the cars arrive, heard his voice in the foyer giving orders in Italian, heard footsteps climbing the stairs. She was in the library pretending to study when he found her. He looked exhausted. 4 days in Sicily had carved new lines around his eyes. But he smiled when he saw her, actually smiled. I missed you, he said. The words were poison. Sheila forced herself to smile back. How was the trip? Productive, complicated. He moved into the room. I brought you something. He held out a small box. Jewelry box. Sheila's stomach turned. You didn't have to. I wanted to. She opened it. Inside was a necklace. White gold, delicate chain, small pendant shaped like a bird mid-flight. It was beautiful. She hated it. Thank you, she managed. Let me. Dante took the necklace and moved behind her. His fingers brushed her neck as he clasped it. Sheila closed her eyes and thought about her father's body in that photograph. Thought about 8 years of lies. Thought about revenge served cold. Perfect, Dante murmured. She could feel his breath against her skin. Could feel the monster standing so close, pretending to be human. I should finish studying, Sheila said. Her voice was steady. Amazing what rage could do for composure. Of course. Dante stepped back. Dinner at 7? I'll be there. He left. The moment the door closed, Sheila ripped off the necklace and threw it in the trash, then spent 10 minutes in the bathroom trying not to scream. That night at dinner, Dante talked about Sicily, about family he'd visited, business he'd concluded, the Mediterranean coast in November. Sheila listened and smiled and played her role, and started planning. She needed access to his office, to the files he kept locked away, to the evidence that would destroy him. You're quiet tonight, Dante observed. Just thinking about finals, 2 weeks away. You'll do fine. You're brilliant. The compliment made her want to vomit. Dante, she said carefully, I was wondering, could I use your office to study sometimes? The library's beautiful, but there's better light in there. His eyes narrowed slightly. Why my office? The windows face east. Morning light helps me concentrate. It was a weak excuse, but Dante considered it. I suppose that would be fine, when I'm not using it. Thank you. He reached across the table, took her hand. Sheila let him, felt his thumb trace circles on her palm, thought about her father dying alone in a warehouse. I meant what I said, Dante told her. I missed you. These 4 days felt like a month. I'm glad you're back. The lie came so easily now. Dante smiled. That genuine smile she'd started to think might be real. She knew better now. Knew it was all performance, all manipulation, all part of the revenge he'd orchestrated with surgical precision. After dinner, Sheila went to her room and pulled out Luca's phone. Typed a message. "I'm in. What do you need?" The response came within seconds. Financial records, account numbers, names of offshore holdings, anything that proves money laundering. Sheila, "How much time do I have?" Luca, "As long as it takes. But be careful. If Dante suspects anything, he'll kill you without hesitation." Sheila, "I know. Because she did know. She'd always known. She just hadn't wanted to believe it." The next morning, Sheila started her new routine. Wake early, eat breakfast with Dante, watch him leave for meetings, then slip into his office while the house was quiet. The first day she found nothing, just surface-level business records, shipping manifests, real estate holdings. The second day she discovered a locked drawer in his desk, spent an hour picking the lock with tools she'd ordered online. Inside, USB drives, dozens of them, all labeled with code she didn't understand. She copied them onto her laptop while her heart hammered so hard she thought it might escape her chest. The third day she found the safe, hidden behind a painting of the Sicilian coast. Combination lock. Impossible to crack without the code. She photographed it and sent the image to Luca. "Can you help with this?" His response, "Working on it. Keep digging." By the end of the week, Sheila had copied enough data to build the beginning of a case. Account numbers in the Caymans, wire transfers to shell companies, names she recognized from federal watch lists. It was all there. Everything her father had tried to expose, everything that had gotten him killed. And Sheila was going to finish what he started. But on the 8th day, everything fell apart. She was in Dante's office copying files when she heard footsteps. No time to hide. No time to run. The door opened. Dante stood in the doorway. His eyes went from her to the laptop to the open drawer to the USB drives scattered across his desk. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Dante closed the door behind him, locked it. "What are you doing, Sheila?" His voice was quiet, deadly. She'd never been more terrified in her life. "I was just... Don't lie to me." He moved closer, each step deliberate. "What are you doing?" Sheila's mind raced. She could deny it, make up some excuse, pretend she was curious about his business, or she could stop pretending, stop playing the victim, stop being afraid. "I know what you did," she said. Dante stopped. "What I did?" "To my father, Robert Vaughn. You killed him." The words hung in the air like smoke after gunfire. Dante's expression didn't change. "Who told you that?" "Does it matter?" "It matters if someone's feeding you lies." "Are they lies?" Sheila stood, faced him directly. "Did you or did you not kill my father 8 years ago?" Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then Dante moved to the window, stood with his back to her. "Your father was working with the FBI, building a case that would have destroyed my family. Not just me, my cousins, my soldiers, everyone. So you murdered him. I protected my own. He was trying to do the right thing. He was trying to destroy lives." Dante turned. His face was stone. He knew the risks. He made his choice. Sheila felt something break inside her chest. "And I'm what? Punishment? Revenge? You married me to punish a dead man?" "I married you because..." Dante stopped, jaw tight. "Because why? Finish the sentence." "Us. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you." The words exploded out of him. "Because I saw you once 8 years ago at your father's funeral, looking like your entire world had ended, and I couldn't get you out of my head. Because I waited years watching you grow up and become brilliant and strong and everything I destroyed." Sheila stared at him. This was worse than revenge. This was obsession. "You're insane," she whispered. "Yes." Dante's voice was raw. "Probably. But it doesn't change the facts. I killed your father. I waited for you. I trapped you. All of it's true." "And you thought I'd what? Forgive you? Love you?" "I thought maybe, if I gave you everything, if I proved I could be different." His voice cracked. "I thought maybe you'd choose to stay." Sheila laughed. It came out broken and bitter. "You really are a monster," she said. "You killed my father, then married me thinking I'd fall in love with you? That's not romance, that's psychotic." Dante's hands clenched into fists. "What were you going to do with these files?" "Finish what my father started. Destroy you." "With Luca's help?" The question made her freeze. Dante's smile was cold. "You think I don't know about the phone he gave you? The meetings? The messages? I've known since the first night you snuck out." The floor dropped out from under her. "You've been watching me," Sheila breathed. "I'm always watching you." "Then why didn't you stop me?" "Because I wanted to see how far you'd go." Dante moved closer. "I wanted to know if you'd actually betray me. If everything between us, all the moments, all the times you stopped me from becoming the monster, if any of it was real or just you playing a role." Sheila backed against the desk. "It was all real. My hatred, my disgust, every second I've spent trapped in this house has been real." "Good." Dante's voice was soft, dangerous. "Then you won't have any conflicted feelings about what happens next." He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in rapid Italian, hung up. "What did you just do?" Sheila demanded. "I called Luca, told him you've been compromised, told him to come collect his spy." Her blood turned to ice. "You're handing me over?" "No." Dante's smile was terrible. "I'm setting a trap, and you're the bait." Before Sheila could respond, the door burst open. 4 men entered, armed. Dante gestured to her. "Take her to the east wing. Lock her in. No one goes near her until I say." "No!" Sheila lunged for the door. Hands grabbed her, lifted her. She fought, kicked, screamed. Dante watched with that cold expression she'd seen the first night in his penthouse. The monster fully unmasked. "You said you'd hate me every day for the rest of your life," he said quietly. "Congratulations, Sheila. You finally got your wish." They dragged her away, down hallways, upstairs, to a room she'd never seen. Small, windowless, a bed, a bathroom, nothing else. They shoved her inside, the door slammed, lock engaged. Sheila stood in the middle of the room, shaking. She'd played right into his hands, thought she was building a case, thought she was getting revenge. But Dante had been 10 steps ahead the entire time. Now she was trapped, really trapped. And whatever he was planning, whatever game he was playing with Luca, she was the piece being sacrificed. Sheila sank onto the bed and finally let herself cry. Not because she was scared, because she'd failed her father, failed herself, failed to see that you couldn't fight a monster by becoming one. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt broken. Finally, the lock clicked. The door opened. Dante stood in the doorway. He looked exhausted, older, the mask completely gone. "Luca's coming," he said. "Tomorrow night. He thinks he's rescuing you. Instead, he's walking into an ambush that will end the Belladonna family permanently." "And me?" Sheila's voice was hoarse from crying. "What happens to me?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then, "That depends on you." "What does that mean?" "It means after tomorrow, this is over. The war ends, Luca dies, and you get to choose." "Choose what?" "Whether you stay or go." Dante's voice was barely a whisper. "I'll give you money, a new identity, a life anywhere in the world. You'll be free." Sheila stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because I love you." The words came out broken, raw. "Because I've loved you since the moment I saw you at your father's funeral looking like a ghost in a black dress. Because everything I've done, all of it, was trying to make you mine. But you can't love someone into loving you back. You can only trap them. And I'm tired of being the cage." Tears streamed down Sheila's face. This man had killed her father, destroyed her life, turned her into a pawn in a game she never wanted to play. And he was telling her he loved her. It was the cruelest thing he'd ever said. "I will never love you," Sheila whispered. "Never." Dante nodded. "I know." He turned to leave. "Wait," Sheila said. He stopped. "My father," her voice cracked. "Did he suffer?" Dante looked back at her. "No, it was quick, clean. He never saw it coming." "Was that supposed to make me feel better?" "No. It was supposed to be the truth." Dante's voice was hollow. "You asked for honesty. That's all I have left to give you. He walked out. The door locked behind him, and Sheila sat alone in the dark, realizing that tomorrow night, everything would end. Luca would die, Dante's empire would stand, and she would finally be free. But freedom bought with blood wasn't freedom at all. It was just another cage, different bars, same trap. Sheila pulled her knees to her chest and rocked back and forth while the walls closed in, and tomorrow approached like an execution she couldn't stop. Somewhere in the house, Dante was preparing for war, and Sheila was realizing that the only way to survive was to become someone she didn't recognize, someone who could watch men die and feel nothing, someone who could trade one monster for another, someone who could sacrifice everything, even her own humanity, just to make it out alive. The girl who'd walked into Dante's office weeks ago demanding answers was gone. In her place was something harder, sharper, more dangerous than either Dante or Luca had anticipated, because Sheila Vaughn had finally learned the most important lesson of survival. In a world built from violence, the only way to win was to burn it all down and rise from the ashes wearing a crown made of your enemy's bones. Tomorrow night, she would prove it. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Tomorrow night, the real war would begin, and neither Dante nor Luca would see her coming. Sheila had exactly 18 hours to become someone she'd never been before. A killer. Or at least someone willing to watch killers work. Because that's what tomorrow night required. Luca would arrive expecting rescue. Dante would spring the trap. Men would die. And Sheila would either stand there complicit in the slaughter, or she'd find a third option nobody saw coming. The problem was she had no idea what that third option looked like. She spent the first hour after Dante locked her in the windowless room doing what any good law student would do, analyzing the situation like a case study. Facts, evidence, legal precedents, as if there was some constitutional framework for escaping a mob war. There wasn't. At midnight, the lock clicked. Sheila shot to her feet. The door opened. Not Dante. Marco, the young soldier whose life she'd saved 3 weeks ago. He looked uncomfortable, guilty. "Mrs. Moretti," he said quietly, "I brought food." Sheila stared at the tray in his hands. "Boss said you need to eat." "Boss can go to hell." Marco flinched but didn't leave, just set the tray on the small table and turned to go. "Wait," Sheila said. "Marco, you owe me." He stopped. "I know." "Then help me." "I can't." "You can. You just won't." Marco turned back. His face was young, too young for the violence carved into the lines around his eyes. "You don't understand what you're asking. If I betray Dante, I'm dead. My family's dead. Everyone I love pays the price. And if you do nothing, more people die tomorrow, including maybe me. The boss wouldn't he?" Sheila stepped closer. "You've seen what he's capable of. You know what happens to people who get in his way. What makes you think I'm different?" Marco's jaw tightened. "Because he looks at you like you're the only thing in the world that matters. I've known Dante Moretti for 5 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." The words hit harder than they should have. "That doesn't mean I'm safe," Sheila said. "That means I'm valuable. And valuable things get used, get sacrificed, get destroyed when they stop being useful. What do you want from me?" "Information. What's the plan for tomorrow?" "Exactly." Marco hesitated, then quietly, "Luca arrives at 9 p.m. Thinks he's coming to extract you. Dante has snipers positioned on the roof. Men inside. The second Luca's car passes the gate, they open fire. Kill everyone. No survivors. And me? You're supposed to be in the main hall, visible, so Luca sees you're alive before he dies." Sheila's stomach turned. "He's using me as bait. He's using you as proof that he keeps his word, that you're alive and unharmed like he promised on the phone call. That's not the same thing. In his mind it is." Sheila paced the small room. Her mind raced through possibilities, scenarios, legal frameworks that didn't apply, moral calculations that had no right answer. "If I wanted to warn Luca," she said carefully, "how would I do it?" Marco's eyes widened. Please don't ask me to." "I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm asking hypothetically. If someone wanted to get a message out of this estate, how would they do it?" "It's impossible. All phones monitored, all communications tracked. The boss controls everything." "There has to be a way." "There isn't." I'm sorry. Marco moved toward the door. I brought you food. Eat it or don't. But I can't help you. He left. The lock engaged. Sheila stood alone again, staring at the tray of food she couldn't eat. But Marco had given her something more valuable than help. He'd given her information. Snipers on the roof. Men inside. 9 p.m. attack. If she could get word to Luca, if she could warn him, maybe the trap could be avoided entirely. No slaughter, no bodies, no blood on her hands for failing to stop what she knew was coming. Sheila pulled out the burner phone Luca had given her, the one she'd hidden in her bra before Dante's men searched her, the one nobody had found because they hadn't looked that carefully. She typed, "It's a trap. Don't come tomorrow." Her finger hovered over send. If she did this, she was choosing Luca over Dante, choosing the man who wanted to use her over the man who already had. Not much of a choice, but at least it was hers. She hit send. The message disappeared into the void. 3 seconds later, the phone buzzed. Luca. I know. Come anyway. Have a plan. Trust me. Sheila stared at the screen. He knew it was a trap and he was coming anyway. That was either incredibly brave or monumentally stupid. Probably both. She typed, "What plan?" No response. She waited. Nothing. 5 minutes passed, then the phone buzzed again. But it wasn't from Luca, it was from an unknown number. The message read, "Your father would be proud. Keep fighting. A friend." Sheila's hands shook. Someone else was watching. Someone else knew what was happening. Someone who knew about her father. She typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "Someone who wants to see Dante Moretti burn. Tomorrow night the estate will be surrounded. FBI, NYPD, everyone. When the shooting starts, get to the ground and stay there. We're ending this. Federal agents. The house was going to be raided. Tomorrow night wasn't just going to be Dante versus Luca. It was going to be a war zone. And Sheila was trapped in the middle. She deleted both messages and hid the phone again, then sat on the edge of the bed trying to process what she'd just learned. The FBI was coming. Which meant someone had finally built a case. Which meant all the evidence her father had gathered, all the files she'd copied from Dante's office, someone else had found it too. Or maybe, her breath caught, maybe she wasn't the only person her father had trusted with his evidence. Maybe he'd had a backup plan. Someone else with copies, someone who'd been waiting for the right moment to strike. The realization settled over her like ice water. Tomorrow night wasn't going to be an ambush. It was going to be the end of everything. Dante's empire, Luca's family, the entire criminal infrastructure her father had tried to expose, all of it coming down at once. And Sheila was the catalyst, the witness, the evidence, the daughter of the man who'd started this war 8 years ago. She stood and moved to the door, pounded on it with both fists. "Let me out!" No response. She pounded harder. "Dante, I need to talk to you." Footsteps in the hallway. The lock clicked. Not Dante. "Elena." The older woman looked exhausted. "Stop screaming. Everyone can hear you." "Good. I want them to hear. I need to talk to Dante." "He's not here." "Where is he?" "Meeting with his men. Finalizing tomorrow's plan." Elena's voice was quiet. "You should eat something. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a bloodbath, I know." Sheila grabbed Elena's arm. "You have to stop him. You have to make him see that this is suicide." "I'm the housekeeper. I don't make him see anything." "You've worked for him for 20 years. You know him better than anyone. Please, tell him to call it off." Elena's expression was sad. "He won't listen. Not about this. Luca killed his father. This has been coming since before you were born. Then more people will die for something that happened decades ago? That's insane." "That's the world you married into." Elena pulled free. "Get some rest, Mrs. Moretti. You'll need your strength." She left. The lock engaged. Sheila stood alone again in the windowless room that felt smaller every second. She had 12 hours until everything exploded. 12 hours to figure out how to survive. 12 hours to decide which side she was on. Dante, who'd trapped her. Luca, who'd lied to her. The FBI, who probably wanted to use her as a witness. Or herself. The only person she could actually trust. Sheila lay down on the bed fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the house, Dante was planning war. Somewhere in the city, Luca was preparing to walk into a trap he supposedly knew about. And somewhere, everywhere, federal agents were moving into position to end it all. Her father had set this in motion 8 years ago. Tomorrow night, it would finally finish. One way or another. Sheila closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Failed. At 6 a.m., the door opened again. This time it was Dante. He looked like he hadn't slept, hair disheveled, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot but sharp. "We need to talk," he said. Sheila sat up. "About what?" "How you're using me as bait. How you've been lying to me since the day we met. How my father—" "I know you warned him." The words stopped her cold. Dante held up a device. Small, electronic. "Signal jammer, been active since midnight. Nothing gets in or out of this room electronically. But the burst you sent at 11:47 p.m.? That got through. Just barely." Sheila's heart hammered. "So what? You're going to kill me too?" "No." Dante moved into the room. "I'm going to ask you why." "Why what?" "Why warn him? Why side with the man who's just as bad as me? Who's just as willing to use you?" "Because at least he was honest about it." The words exploded out. "At least Luca told me the truth. Told me you killed my father. Told me what you really are. And you believed him." "I saw the proof, the photographs, the documents, everything." Dante's jaw tightened. "Did you see the rest? Did you see what your father was actually doing? He was building a case against you. He was stealing from me." Dante pulled out his phone, showed her a screen. "Bank records. Your father had access to accounts, was supposed to manage transfers. Instead, he was skimming, $1 million here, $2 million there, covering his tracks with false entries." Sheila stared at the numbers. "No, he wouldn't. He did. For 3 years, $8 million total. He was planning to disappear, take you and your brother and vanish into witness protection with money he stole from me." "You're lying. I'm showing you evidence." Dante's voice was quiet. "Your father wasn't a hero, Sheila. He was a thief who got caught. The FBI stuff? That was his insurance, his leverage. He thought if he threatened to expose me, I'd let him keep the money. And you killed him instead." "I gave him a choice. Return the money and walk away. Or die." Dante's voice was flat. "He chose to fight. So yes, I killed him. But it wasn't murder. It was consequences." Sheila wanted to call him a liar, wanted to scream that her father was good and Dante was evil, and it was simple and clear and black and white. But the bank records on the screen told a different story. Told a story of a man desperate and broken and willing to do anything to escape. Even steal from a monster. "I don't believe you," she whispered. "Yes, you do. You just don't want to." Dante put the phone away. "Your father was complicated, flawed, human, just like everyone else. He tried to do the right thing and made terrible choices along the way. Sound familiar?" The accusation hit like a slap. Because it did sound familiar. It sounded exactly like what Sheila had been doing. Making terrible choices, trusting the wrong people, trying to survive in a world where right and wrong didn't exist. Only power, and the people crushed beneath it. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "I want you to trust me." "Trust you after everything?" "Yes." "That's insane." "Maybe." Dante crouched in front of her, eye level, close enough that she could see exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "But tonight, when the shooting starts, you're going to have to choose who to believe. Me, Luca, the feds who are probably watching this house right now waiting to make their move." Sheila's breath caught. "You know about the FBI." "Of course I know. I've known for weeks. Why do you think I've been so careful? Why do you think I moved everything overseas? Why do you think tonight is happening?" "Because you're destroying the evidence." "I'm destroying the witnesses." Dante's voice was cold. "Luca, his men, everyone who could testify. After tonight, the feds have nothing. No case, no witnesses, just suspicion and circumstantial evidence that won't hold up in court. And me? What am I? You're the wild card." Dante's hand came up, cupped her face. "You're the one piece I can't control, can't predict. You could destroy me, could save me, could walk away and let it all burn. So what's stopping you from killing me right now?" "This." He kissed her. Hard, desperate, nothing gentle about it. Sheila shoved him. He pulled back but didn't let go. I love you, Dante said. I've loved you since before I had any right to. Since before I knew your name, and tonight, when everything ends, I need you to know that. I need you to understand that every terrible thing I've done has been trying to build a world where you and I could exist together. That's not love, that's obsession. Maybe they're the same thing. They're not. Dante's thumb traced her jaw. Then what is it when I'd burn my entire empire just to keep you safe? What is it when I'd let Luca walk away if it meant you'd choose to stay? It's manipulation. It's truth. His voice cracked. And tonight you'll have to decide if you believe me. He stood and walked to the door. Dante, there's a car waiting. Elena will take you to a safe house in Connecticut. You'll stay there until this is over. What? No, you can't just... I can and I am. You're not staying here for the bloodbath. I won't let you watch this. I'm not running. You're not running, you're surviving. Dante looked back at her. Because when this is over, when I've won or lost or died trying, I need to know you're safe. That's all that matters. You don't get to make that choice for me. Watch me. He walked out. This time when the lock engaged, Sheila knew there was no getting out. She was being removed from the board, sent away, protected, imprisoned. Same thing, different cage. Sheila grabbed the burner phone and typed a message to the unknown federal contact. Dante knows you're watching. He's moving me. Don't lose track. The response came immediately. We have eyes on you. Stay calm. This ends tonight. She deleted the messages and waited. 20 minutes later, Elena arrived with 2 guards. It's time, the older woman said gently. Sheila didn't fight. What was the point? They escorted her through the estate to a side entrance she'd never used. A black SUV waited. Engine running, windows tinted. Elena opened the door. Get in. Sheila climbed inside. The interior was empty except for the driver, a man she didn't recognize. Elena closed the door. The locks engaged. They pulled away from the estate. Sheila watched through tinted windows as Dante's fortress disappeared behind them. Watched the gates close. Watched the last chance to stop what was coming vanish into the November fog. They drove for 20 minutes. Then the driver's phone rang. He answered in Italian, listened. His expression changed. He pulled over on a deserted stretch of highway, turned to look at Sheila through the partition. Change of plans, he said in accented English. Boss says bring you back. What? Why? Luca moved up the timeline, coming now. Boss needs you at the estate. Sheila's pulse spiked. When is now? 20 minutes. The SUV made a sharp U-turn and accelerated back toward the estate. Sheila grabbed the door handle. Locked. Of course it was locked. She pulled out the burner phone and typed, Luca coming early. I'm being brought back. Send help. No response. They were moving too fast. Trees blurred past. The highway became side roads, became the private drive leading to Dante's gates. The gates opened. They drove through, and Sheila saw what awaited. Men everywhere, armed, positioned, ready for war. The SUV stopped at the front entrance. The driver got out and opened her door. Move, now! Sheila climbed out on shaking legs. Dante was there. He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the house. What the hell were you thinking? You told me to go! And then Luca called, said he knows about Connecticut, said if I don't produce you in 15 minutes, the deal's off, and he starts killing my men one by one across the city. What deal? He wants a trade. You for safe passage. Says he'll walk away from New York, end the war. All he wants is you. Sheila stared at him. And you said? I said I'd consider it. You're actually thinking about handing me over? Dante's grip tightened. I'm thinking about keeping you alive. If he wants you badly enough to offer peace, maybe that's the play. Or maybe it's another trap. Everything's a trap. Dante pulled her inside. But at least this one gives you a chance. They moved through the house to the main hall where Sheila had first met Dante months ago, where everything started. Now it was ending here too. Men lined the walls, weapons ready, eyes sharp. And through the windows, Sheila saw headlights approaching. 3 cars. Moving fast. Luca was here. Dante positioned Sheila in the center of the room. Don't move. Don't speak. Let me handle this. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes to end this without losing you. The cars stopped outside. Doors opened. Footsteps on marble. The front door swung wide. Luca Belladonna walked in, flanked by 4 men. He looked exactly like he had in the warehouse. Sharp suit, silver hair, dangerous smile. His eyes found Sheila immediately. "Mrs. Moretti," he said, "you're looking well, considering." "Considering what? That both of you have been using me as a pawn?" "Fair point." Luca turned to Dante. "I'm here for the trade. Her for peace." That was the offer. "And I'm here to discuss terms," Dante said. "Because peace is worth negotiating." "No negotiation. You hand her over. I walk away. The war ends." "Why do you want her so badly?" "Because she's Robert Vaughn's daughter. Because she deserves better than being your prisoner. Because," Luca's voice hardened, "because I made a promise to her father before you killed him that if anything happened, I'd protect his family." The revelation hit like lightning. Sheila's father had known Luca, had trusted him, had made arrangements. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. "You're lying," Dante said. "Am I?" Luca pulled out a photo, old, faded, showed 2 men smiling at a camera, Robert Vaughn and Luca Belladonna. 20 years younger, but unmistakable. "We were friends," Luca said quietly, "before your family and mine started killing each other, before everything went to hell. Robert was a good man caught in a bad world, and I failed him. I won't fail his daughter, too." Sheila couldn't breathe. Her father had known Luca, had been friends with a mob boss, had been deeper in this world than she'd ever imagined. "So you want her out of guilt," Dante said, "not strategy." "I want her safe. Call it whatever you want." "And what makes you think she'll be safer with you than with me? Because I won't chain her to a marriage built on lies." Dante's jaw tightened. "She stays with me. Then the war continues. Then people die, starting with you." Luca smiled. "You think I came here unprepared? You think I don't know about your snipers, your men inside, the trap you set? You walked in anyway." "Because I have insurance." Luca gestured. One of his men stepped forward holding a phone. On the screen, a live video feed showing the outside of the estate, showing dozens of federal vehicles surrounding the property, showing FBI agents in tactical gear moving into position. "Your house is surrounded," Luca said calmly. "The feds have been building a case for months. Tonight, they're executing warrants. In about," he checked his watch, "3 minutes. So here's the real deal, Moretti. You hand over Sheila. She walks out with me. The feds get their arrests. And maybe, you get to negotiate surrender instead of getting shot resisting arrest." Dante stared at the screen, at the federal agents closing in, at the empire about to collapse. Then he looked at Sheila, and she saw it, the moment he made his choice. "No," Dante said quietly. "No?" Luca repeated. "You're choosing prison over letting her go?" "I'm choosing to give her the choice." Dante turned to Sheila. "You want to leave with him? Go. Want to stay and watch this play out? Stay. Want to walk out those doors and surrender to the feds yourself? Do it. But it's your choice, not mine, not his. Yours." The room went silent, every eye on Sheila, the daughter of a dead thief, the wife of a living monster, the catalyst for a war she never asked to fight. Outside, sirens wailed, loudspeakers blared. "This is the FBI. The building is surrounded. Come out with your hands up." 3 choices. Go with Luca into a different kind of cage, stay with Dante and watch it all burn, or walk out alone and face the consequences of everything her father started. Sheila looked at Dante, at the man who'd destroyed her life and somehow made her stronger for surviving it, looked at Luca, at the man who promised protection with strings attached, looked at the doors, at freedom that probably didn't exist, and made her choice. "I'm not going with either of you," she said. Both men stared. "What?" Luca demanded. Sheila pulled out the burner phone, held it up. "I've been talking to the FBI for 3 days. Gave them everything. The files my father collected, the evidence I copied from Dante's office. All of it. You want to know why they're here? Because I invited them." Dante's face went pale. I'm finishing what my father started, taking down everyone. You, Luca, the whole broken system. All of it ends tonight. You'll go to prison too, Luca said. Maybe, probably, but at least I'll go knowing I told the truth, that I didn't just survive, I fought back. The front door burst open. Federal agents flooded in. Hands up! Everyone on the ground! Chaos erupted. Dante's men moved for weapons. Luca's men did the same. Gunfire exploded. Sheila hit the floor. Someone grabbed her. Federal agent pulling her toward the door. She looked back, saw Dante standing frozen in the middle of the hall. Their eyes met across the chaos, and she saw it. Not anger, not betrayal. Something that looked like pride. Then the smoke grenades deployed and everything disappeared into white fog and screaming and the sound of an empire collapsing. The agent dragged Sheila outside, into cold air and flashing lights and more federal vehicles than she could count. Someone wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. Someone else started asking questions. But all Sheila could hear was gunfire inside the house. All she could think was that Dante was still in there, still fighting, still refusing to surrender, and she'd made the choice that put him there. An explosion rocked the east wing. Flames erupted. The estate was burning. Everything Dante had built. Everything her father had tried to destroy. All of it ending in fire and federal warrants and the kind of violence that left no winners, just survivors. And Sheila stood wrapped in a blanket watching it burn and wondered if survival was actually worth the price she'd just paid. Behind her, someone said her name. She turned. A federal agent, woman, 40-something, kind eyes. Sheila Moretti? Vaughn, Sheila corrected. My name is Sheila Vaughn. Ms. Vaughn, I'm Agent Sarah Chen. We need to get you somewhere safe. There's going to be a lot of questions, a lot of legal process. But first, are you hurt? No. Good. Come with me. Sheila let herself be led to a vehicle. Let herself be driven away from the burning estate. Let herself disappear into federal protection and witness protocols and the machinery of justice finally grinding forward. But as they drove through the gates one final time, she looked back, saw the fortress consumed by flames, saw Dante's empire reduced to ash and smoke, and wondered if he was still alive inside, if he'd made it out, if she'd ever see him again. The answer came 3 hours later. Sheila was in a federal building, safe house, protected. Agent Chen walked in, looking grim. We got him, she said quietly. Dante Moretti, Luca Belladonna, 23 others, all in custody, all facing charges. Is he? Sheila couldn't finish. He's alive, injured but stable. He asked about you, asked if you were safe. Tears burned Sheila's eyes. Can I see him? Not yet, maybe not ever. You're a witness now. Contact would compromise the case. I need to know. Her voice cracked. I need to know if he hates me. Agent Chen was quiet for a moment. Then, he said to tell you he understands, that you did what you had to do, and that, she consulted notes, that he's proud of you. That's all. Nothing else. Sheila buried her face in her hands and finally let herself cry. Not from relief, not from victory. From the horrible realization that she'd saved herself by destroying the one person who'd ever seen her as something worth protecting, even if that protection was a cage, even if that person was a monster. The war was over, the empire was ash, and Sheila was free, but freedom bought with betrayal didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving, and surviving felt exactly like drowning, just slower. The federal safe house smelled like disinfectant and lies. Sheila sat in a room with beige walls and furniture that looked like it came from a government catalog circa 1987. Through bulletproof windows, she could see Manhattan in the distance, lights glittering like broken glass scattered across velvet. The city continued like nothing had happened, like an empire hadn't burned, like her entire world hadn't collapsed into federal custody and witness protection. It had been 6 days since the raid. 6 days of questions. 6 days of lawyers and prosecutors and Agent Chen's kind but relentless interrogation. 6 days of Sheila telling the truth over and over until the words stopped meaning anything. Yes, she'd married Dante Moretti under duress. Yes, she'd discovered he killed her father. Yes, she'd copied files and fed information to Luca Belladonna. Yes, she'd ultimately contacted the FBI and provided evidence that brought down both families. Yes, she understood the consequences. The prosecutors were building their case. RICO charges, murder, racketeering, money laundering. The list went on for pages. They had Dante, had Luca, had enough evidence to dismantle what was left of organized crime in New York. Sheila was the star witness, the daughter who'd betrayed her husband to avenge her father. It would make a hell of a story, if anyone cared about the truth underneath. On the 7th morning, Agent Chen walked in carrying coffee and a manila folder. "We need to talk," she said. Sheila looked up from the constitutional law textbook she'd been pretending to read. Finals were in 2 weeks. Assuming she'd be allowed to take them. Assuming any of that mattered anymore. "About what?" "About your testimony." Chen set the folder on the table. "The prosecution wants you to testify against both Dante and Luca. Full immunity in exchange for your cooperation. It's a good deal. And if I refuse? Then you face charges too: accessory, conspiracy. Marriage to Dante makes you legally culpable for some of his activities, whether you participated or not." Sheila opened the folder. Inside was a plea agreement, dense legal language. Her name at the bottom, waiting for a signature. "How long?" she asked. "How long what? How long would Dante get? If I testify? If the prosecution gets everything they want?" Chen was quiet. "Life. Probably multiple life sentences running concurrent. He'd die in prison." Sheila's hands shook. She set down the folder. "And Luca?" "Same. Maybe worse depending on what other evidence surfaces. So I testify and they both die in cages. They're murderers, Sheila. They've killed dozens of people between them, your father included. Why do you care what happens to them?" "Because," her voice cracked, "because it's not that simple. Nothing about this is simple." Chen sat down across from her. "Help me understand. Because from where I'm sitting, you're the victim. You were forced into marriage, held prisoner, threatened. You escaped and brought down your captors. That's a win." "Is it?" Sheila laughed, bitter. "Because it feels like I traded one cage for another. Federal protection. Witness protocols, a life spent looking over my shoulder waiting for someone to finish what Dante and Luca started. We'll keep you safe." "You can't promise that. Nobody can." Chen pulled out another document. "This is from Dante's lawyer. It was delivered this morning. I wasn't going to show you, but..." She hesitated. "I think you should read it." Sheila took the paper. It was handwritten, Dante's handwriting, sharp, angular letters that looked like they'd been carved instead of written. "Sheila, I don't blame you. You did what you had to do, what you should have done from the beginning. I'm proud of you for that. Everything I told you was true. I killed your father. I trapped you. I built our marriage on lies and violence. You had every right to burn it down. But I need you to know something. The files you gave the FBI, some of them are incomplete. Deliberately. I've been moving evidence for months, offshore accounts, shell corporations, hidden assets. The prosecutors think they have everything, but they don't. I'm telling you this because I want you to make a choice with full information. If you testify, I go to prison for life. But the empire doesn't die. It just goes underground. Restructures. Continues under different names. If you want it to really end, if you want to finish what your father started, you need the rest of the evidence. I'll give it to you, all of it. Everything required to dismantle not just my family, but the entire network. In exchange, I want one thing. Come see me, face to face, before the trial, before you testify. Give me 1 hour to explain everything. Then you can bury me with a clear conscience. The choice is yours. It always has been. D. Sheila read it 3 times. Chen watched her carefully. What do you think? I think it's manipulation. Probably. But is he lying about the evidence? I don't know. Our forensic accountants say there are gaps, transactions that don't add up, money that disappeared into holes we can't find. If Dante really has evidence that could close those holes. Chen trailed off. It could be the difference between a case that sticks and one that falls apart on appeal. So you want me to see him? I want you to make an informed decision. If meeting with Dante gets us the evidence we need, then yes. I think you should see him. Sheila stared at the letter, at Dante's handwriting, at the last move in a game she thought was over. When? She asked. Tomorrow, Federal Detention Center, 1 hour, fully monitored, guards present. You'd be completely safe. I'm never completely safe. Not anymore. No, Chen agreed quietly. Probably not. Jab. The Federal Detention Center was exactly what Sheila expected. concrete and fluorescent lights and the smell of industrial cleaning products trying to mask despair. Agent Chen escorted her through security. Metal detectors, pat-downs, paperwork. They walked down corridors painted institutional green, stopped at a door marked Attorney Conference Room 3. 1 hour, Chen said, guards outside, camera inside. If anything happens, anything at all, we shut it down. Sheila nodded. Her mouth was dry. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Chen opened the door. Inside was a table, 2 chairs, cameras in every corner, and Dante. He sat on the far side wearing an orange jumpsuit that looked obscene on someone who'd spent his life in tailored suits. His face was bruised, split lip, bandage on his left temple. But his eyes were the same, gray and sharp and utterly focused on her the second she walked in. Sheila. Just her name. But the way he said it made her chest ache. She sat down across from him. The table between them felt miles wide. You look terrible, she said. Prison doesn't agree with me. A ghost of a smile. You look beautiful. Don't. Can't help it. It's true. Sheila pulled out the letter, set it on the table. You said you'd give me the rest of the evidence. I'm here. Talk. Dante was quiet for a moment, then, how's your brother? Marcus is fine. Safe. He doesn't know any of this. Good. That's good. Dante's hands were cuffed in front of him. He lifted them and rubbed his face. I've been thinking about what to say to you. Practiced it 100 times. But now that you're here, I don't know where to start. Start with the truth. The truth is I love you. Still. Always. And I'm sorry. Sorry for what? Killing my father? Trapping me? Building a marriage on lies? All of it. Every single thing. Dante's voice was raw. I convinced myself that I was protecting you, that forcing you into my world was somehow saving you from a worse fate. But I was lying to myself. I wanted you, I took you, and I destroyed you in the process. Sheila's throat tightened. If you actually loved me, you would have let me go. I know. I know that now. But 8 months ago, when I first saw you walking out of Columbia Law looking like you carried the weight of the world on your shoulders, I saw someone who needed saving. Someone who reminded me of who I used to be before I became this. You were never anything but this. No, I was. Once. Dante looked down at his cuffed hands. My father was a fisherman. Did you know that? In Sicily. Before he got involved with the families. Before everything went to hell. He used to take me out on the boat, teach me about the water, about patience, about how some things can't be forced. Why are you telling me this? Because I forgot those lessons. Forgot that you can't force someone to love you. Can't trap them into being what you need. I spent 20 years building an empire and forgot what my father taught me. That the things worth having come freely or they don't come at all. Tears burned Sheila's eyes. Your father sounds like a good man. He was. Until your father's federal case exposed him. Until he went to prison and died there 6 months later because I couldn't protect him. The revelation hit like cold water. My father was doing his job, building his case. He didn't know one of the men he was targeting was my father. Didn't know that by exposing him, he was signing his death warrant. But I knew. And when your father came to me 8 years ago asking for mercy, asking me to let it go, I couldn't. I was too angry, too broken. So I killed him. Dante looked up. His eyes were wet. That's the truth, Sheila. Your father tried to make it right, tried to undo the damage, but I was too far gone to hear him. And now both our fathers are dead because I couldn't let go of rage. Sheila wiped her eyes with shaking hands. The evidence. You said you'd give me the evidence. I will. All of it. Locations, account numbers, everything you need to finish this. Dante pulled a folded paper from inside his jumpsuit. How he'd gotten it past security, Sheila didn't want to know. But first, I need to know something. What? Did any of it matter? The months we spent together? The moments when I wasn't being a monster? Did any of it mean anything to you? Sheila stared at him. This broken man in an orange jumpsuit asking if the woman he'd destroyed had felt anything real. Yes, she whispered. That's what made it so terrible. Because there were moments when you were kind or vulnerable or actually human, and I started to see you as something other than my father's killer. Started to think maybe she couldn't finish. Dante nodded slowly. Maybe we could have been something real. But we couldn't, because you built it on lies. I know, because you trapped me. I know, because no matter how much you changed or tried to be better, you still killed my father. I know. Dante's voice broke. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life in a cage regretting it, but at least I got to love you. Even if you never loved me back. At least I got that. He slid the paper across the table. Sheila unfolded it. Inside were account numbers, locations, names, everything the prosecutors needed to completely dismantle what remained of the Moretti empire. This is everything? She asked. Everything. Use it. Finish what your father started. Make his death mean something. Sheila folded the paper and stood to leave. Wait, Dante said. One more thing. She stopped. The Moretti Foundation. The legitimate businesses I was building. The transformation you pushed me toward. I signed it all over to you, every asset, every company. It's yours now. I don't want your blood money. It's not blood money anymore. It's clean, legitimate, and it's yours to use however you want. Build something good. Build something your father would be proud of. Why would you? Because you're the only good thing I ever created. And I want to know that when I die in here, something I touched became something beautiful. Sheila's vision blurred. She wanted to hate him, should hate him, but standing there looking at this broken monster who'd loved her in the worst possible way, she just felt tired. Goodbye, Dante. Goodbye, Sheila. He smiled. Thank you for showing me what I could have been, even if I'll never get the chance to be it. She walked to the door. Knocked. A guard opened it. Sheila stepped through without looking back. If she looked back, she might break. Might see the man instead of the monster. And she couldn't afford that anymore. Ticket. The trial took 3 months. Sheila testified for 6 days. Every detail, every moment, every truth she'd uncovered. Dante's lawyers tried to discredit her, called her a scorned wife, a manipulator, someone who'd married for money and turned on her husband when it was convenient. Sheila took it. Answered every question, told the truth even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. The prosecution used the evidence Dante had given her, traced accounts, found hidden assets, built a case so airtight even the best lawyers couldn't crack it. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. Dante Moretti, guilty on all counts. Luca Belladonna, guilty on all counts. 23 others, guilty. The judge handed down sentences that added up to lifetimes. Plural. Consecutive. The kind of numbers that meant dying in prison was the only outcome. Sheila sat in the gallery and watched Dante's face as the verdict was read. He didn't react, didn't flinch, just sat there with that same calm expression he'd worn the first night in his penthouse. When the guards led him away, he looked at her one final time, mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Sheila cried all the way back to the safe house. Mate. 3 weeks after the sentencing, Sheila graduated from Columbia Law. Top of her class. Bar exam scheduled for August. Her entire future spread before her like a road she'd earned the right to walk. Marcus was there. 18 now. Heading to MIT in the fall. Healthy, happy, completely unaware that his education had been funded by the man who'd killed their father. Sheila would never tell him. Some truths were too heavy to carry. After the ceremony, Agent Chen found her in the crowd. Congratulations, counselor. Not yet. Still have to pass the bar. You will. I've seen your practice scores. Chen pulled out an envelope. This came for you, from Dante's lawyer. Sheila took it with numb fingers. Inside was a single key and a note. The penthouse where we first met. It's yours now. Do with it what you want. Build something beautiful. D. He gave you his penthouse? Chen asked. Apparently. What are you going to do with it? Sheila looked at the key, at the symbol of where everything started, at the cage that had become something else. I don't know yet, she said honestly, but I'll figure it out. Yes. 6 months later, Sheila stood in the penthouse overlooking Manhattan. The space had been gutted, renovated, transformed into something new. The Vaughn Foundation, a nonprofit providing legal services to victims of domestic violence and human trafficking. helping people escape situations where they'd been trapped, where they'd been used, where they'd lost themselves trying to survive. Sheila had used Dante's money to build it, used the empire he'd handed her to create something that would have made her father proud. The irony wasn't lost on her. The foundation's launch was tomorrow. Press conference, donors, politicians who wanted to be photographed with the woman who'd brought down 2 crime families. Sheila didn't care about the publicity, cared about the work, about helping people find the freedom she'd fought for. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. She turned. Agent Chen stood in the doorway. "You have a visitor," she said quietly. "He's requesting to see you. I can turn him away if you want." "Who?" Chen stepped aside. "Dante." Sheila's heart stopped. He stood in the doorway wearing civilian clothes. Not a jumpsuit, not handcuffs, just jeans and a jacket, and an expression that looked like he'd seen the end of the world and survived it. "How?" Sheila couldn't finish. Chen answered. "Federal prosecution made a deal. Dante testified against higher targets, gave them connections we didn't know existed, in exchange for time served and immediate parole." "That's impossible. He got life." "He got life pending cooperation. The cooperation was significant enough that the judge reduced his sentence to time served plus 10 years supervised release. He's out, free, with conditions." Sheila looked at Dante, at the man who should be in prison, who'd somehow talked his way out. "I should go," Chen said. "Give you 2 privacy." She left. The door closed. Sheila and Dante stood on opposite sides of the penthouse where everything had started. "You look good," he said finally. "You look alive, which is more than you deserve." Probably true. Dante moved into the room slowly, like he was afraid sudden movements would shatter something fragile. "I heard about the foundation. It's good work. It's what my father would have wanted. It's more than that. It's what you wanted. You built this. Not him. Not me. You." Sheila crossed her arms. "Why are you here?" "Because I owed you an explanation. A real one. Face to face without bars between us." "I don't want your explanations." "I know, but I'm going to give them anyway." Dante stopped a few feet away. "I testified against people worse than me. Gave the feds access to networks that will take decades to dismantle. I did it because you were right. The violence had to stop. The cycle had to break. And the only way to break it was from the inside." "So you're a hero now? Is that the story?" "No. I'm a monster who finally did one decent thing, that's all." Sheila's throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I want nothing from you. I just wanted you to know that I'm leaving. New York, the country, starting over somewhere the name Moretti doesn't mean anything." "Good, you should. But before I go..." Dante reached into his jacket. Sheila stepped back. "It's not a weapon," he said quietly. He pulled out a folder. "It's this." Inside were divorce papers, already signed by him. "You're giving me a divorce?" "I'm giving you your freedom. Real freedom. Not the kind trapped in legal contracts and federal agreements. The kind where you never have to see me again." Sheila took the papers with shaking hands. "Why now?" "Because I love you enough to let you go. Should have done it months ago, years ago. Should never have trapped you in the first place. But I did. And now I'm fixing it." Tears burned her eyes. "I'm supposed to thank you? For finally doing the bare minimum?" "No, you're not supposed to thank me. You're supposed to hate me. Build your life. Forget I exist. That's all I want." "Why does what you want even matter?" "It doesn't." Dante's voice cracked. "Nothing I want matters. This is about you. About giving you the life you should have had from the beginning." Sheila set down the papers. "I can't just forget you existed. You destroyed my father, married me, built a cage around my entire existence. That doesn't just disappear because you signed some papers." "I know." "So what? You walk away, start over, pretend none of this happened?" "No, I live with it, every day, for the rest of my life. I wake up knowing I destroyed the one person I ever loved. That's my cage, and I'll die in it eventually." Sheila wiped her eyes. "Good. Yeah." Dante almost smiled. "Good." They stood in silence, 2 people who'd broken and saved each other in equal measure. Finally, Dante turned toward the door. "Wait," Sheila said. He stopped. "Did you mean it? Everything you said about loving me?" Dante looked back. Every word. "Even knowing I'd never love you back? Especially knowing that. Because you deserved better than what I gave you. Deserved someone who loved you without conditions, without cages. And that was never going to be me." "No," Sheila agreed quietly. "It wasn't." "For what it's worth," Dante's voice was barely a whisper, "you made me want to be better. Want to be someone worth loving. That's more than anyone's done in 40 years. So thank you for that." He walked out. The door closed. Sheila stood alone in the penthouse overlooking the city where her nightmare had begun and somehow transformed into something survivable. She picked up the divorce papers, read through them, signed her name, Sheila Vaughn, not Moretti, never really Moretti, just Vaughn, daughter of Robert Vaughn, sister to Marcus Vaughn, survivor, fighter, herself. One year after everything ended, Sheila stood in front of a courtroom as a newly licensed attorney. Her first case? Defending a young woman who'd been forced into marriage by a man twice her age. The parallels weren't lost on anyone. Sheila built her case with the precision of someone who'd lived through exactly what her client described. Presented evidence. Destroyed the opposition's arguments. Made the jury see the truth underneath the legal language. When the verdict came back, annulment granted, restraining order issued, client free, Sheila felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Real pride. Not for surviving. For winning. After the trial, she walked out into Manhattan sunshine. Her phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. Saw the news. "You won. I'm proud of you. D." Sheila stared at the message. Dante was still watching, still following her career from whatever hole he'd disappeared into. She should block the number, should delete it, should cut the final thread connecting them. Instead, she typed back, "Don't contact me again." His response came immediately. "Understood. Be well, Sheila." She blocked the number, deleted the messages, and kept walking. Because that's what survival looked like now. Not running, not hiding, just continuing forward while the past slowly faded into something that hurt less with every step. Fuck. 5 years after the night that changed everything, Sheila stood in the same penthouse, now the thriving headquarters of the Vaughn Foundation. She was 31, partner at a major law firm, advocate for dozens of victims who'd found freedom through her work, sister to Marcus, who just graduated MIT with honors, survivor of a war she'd never asked to fight but had won anyway. The foundation was hosting a gala, donors, politicians, people who wanted to fund the good work being done. Sheila moved through the crowd playing the role she'd perfected, confident attorney, passionate advocate, woman who'd overcome impossible odds. It wasn't a performance anymore. It was just who she'd become. During a quiet moment, she stepped out onto the terrace. Manhattan stretched below, lights glittering, the city that had witnessed her destruction and rebirth. Beautiful view. Sheila turned. A man stood nearby. 40-something, kind eyes, wedding ring, holding a glass of wine. "It is," she agreed. "I'm David. I run a similar foundation in Boston. Heard about your work. It's impressive." "Thank you." They talked for 20 minutes. Easy conversation, professional, no weight underneath. When he asked for her card, she gave it. When he suggested coffee next time he was in New York, she said, maybe. It felt normal, uncomplicated, like building something that wasn't constructed from trauma. After the gala ended and the crowd dispersed, Sheila stood alone on the terrace. The divorce papers had been finalized 3 years ago. She'd heard through legal channels that Dante was in Argentina, running a fishing business, living quietly. Sometimes she wondered if he was happy, if he'd found peace, if he ever thought about her. Then she stopped wondering because it didn't matter anymore. He was her past. Painful and complicated and impossible to forget. But past nonetheless. Her future belonged to her. The foundation, the work, the possibility of building something with someone who saw her as an equal instead of a possession. Maybe David from Boston. Maybe someone else. Maybe no one. It didn't matter. Because Sheila had learned the most important lesson. She didn't need someone else to be complete. didn't need saving, didn't need a cage or a captor or a complicated monster who claimed to love her. She just needed herself, and that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Sheila took one last look at the city, thought about her father, about the man he'd been before addiction and desperation destroyed him, about the legacy he'd tried to leave. "I finished it, Dad," she whispered to the night. "Took a different path than you planned, but I finished it. Hope you're proud." The wind carried her words away. Somewhere in the city, life continued. People fell in love and fell apart. Empires rose and crumbled. Monsters became men, and men became monsters. But Sheila Vaughn, survivor, attorney, woman who'd walked through hell and built heaven from the ashes, she just kept moving forward. One case at a time, one victory at a time, one breath at a time, until the past became something distant enough that she could look back without drowning, until the scars became stories, until the cage became a memory of something she'd escaped. And on nights when the weight got heavy, when the memories came flooding back, when she wondered if any of it had been worth the price, she'd stand on this terrace overlooking the city and remember that she'd survived. Not despite the darkness, not in spite of the monster, but because she'd found strength in the breaking, found herself in the fighting, found freedom in refusing to stay trapped, and that was worth everything. Every tear, every scar, every impossible choice, all of it. Because Sheila Vaughn had walked into Dante Moretti's office, a terrified law student with nothing, and walked out years later a woman who'd transformed an empire, avenged her father, and built something beautiful from ruins. That was her story. That was her victory. That was enough. The city lights burned below. The wind carried promises of tomorrow. And Sheila stood alone on her terrace, free, whole, unbroken, and finally let herself smile. Not because the pain was gone, but because she'd learned to carry it, and in carrying it, she'd become someone strong enough to help others do the same. That was love. Real love. Not possession or obsession or cages dressed as protection, but the choice to take your broken pieces and build something that helps others survive their own breaking. That was the legacy worth leaving. That was what her father had really wanted. That was what Dante had finally understood too late. And that was what Sheila had become. A woman who'd walked through fire and learned to carry light instead of heat. A woman who'd faced monsters and refused to become one. A woman who'd survived the worst and chose to build the best. That woman stood on a terrace 5 years after her world ended, whole, free, alive, and ready for whatever came next. Because the story wasn't over. It was just beginning, on her terms, in her voice, with her choices. Finally, the end.